right, great. We're on. Welcome to the July 13, 2017 Board of Selectmen meeting, for our first fiscal year 18 board meeting. We'll ask if our town administrator could please read the agenda, and then people can, if there are things that need to be added, we can vote to add or amend the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda and add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. Then a period of public comment, and then certificates of appreciation for Doug Cassell, Doug Ambos, Phyllis Braun, and Ruth Stewart. Then consideration of appointments, Sharon McPherson, Finance Director, Accountant, Pat LeBlanc, Farm Pond Advisory Committee, for a term to expire 6/15/2020. Sophia Hill, Farm Pond Advisory Committee, for a term to expire 6/15/2020. All of these are set to expire 6/15/2020. Tricia Caldecott for Council on Aging, Joan Dunn, Council on Aging, Helen Braithwaite, Council on Aging, Jean Russo, Council on Aging, and discussion regarding temporary treasurer. A dangerous dog hearing is to be held at 6:45. Public hearing to consider a complaint submitted pursuant to GL Chapter 140, Section 157A, that a dog known as Blitz, which is owned or kept at 187 Maple Street in Sherborn, is a dangerous dog or nuisance dog, as those terms are defined in GL Chapter 140, Section 136A. The Board of Selectmen may make such findings and order concerning the restraint or disposal of said dog as may be deemed necessary, and votes may be taken. Then there's an update on library construction, and then finance matters, consideration of reserve fund transfers, budget transfers, encumbrances, full tax filling service migration to Harper's, payroll services, transfer of insurance reimbursement, carry forward balance, and that's all with Finance Director, Town Accountant Sharon McPherson. Consideration of FY18 Town Council contract with KP Law and Barbara St. Andre. Consideration of CM&D and Director Hiring and Assessment Center update. Selectmen reports. And then executive session not to return to open session. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21.3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with CM&D Union, AFSCME Council Number 93. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining unit position of the town and the chair so declares, and MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21.3, to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town and the chair so declares, with respect to the following matters: the Town of Sherborn et al. Versus the Gray Road LLC, et al. The Gray Road LLC versus Sherborn ZBA, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus ZBA, Stevens, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Board of Health, and the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Conservation Commission, and Murchison versus ZBA.
Okay. Anybody have anything to add to that agenda? Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, great. We've got public comment. I noticed a couple of things. One is the first person who signed up for public comment is Mr. McSoley, who had written us a letter, I believe. Is he here? Mr. McSoley?
He said he was coming back.
Okay, so I'm gathering he doesn't wish to speak during public comment. Maybe he wants to speak during the dog hearing, because he wrote a letter about the dog. And then Mr. Spillman, and it looks like, Zach, you want to speak about the CM&D director? Which
I do, if that should wait until then.
it's later in the agenda, so if you could. Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to the next thing, which is certificates of appreciation. It's a little early, but is everybody here for that so far, Diane?
Let me see.
I see 4, 3.
Doug and Bob Ambos. I'm missing the Ambos.
Okay, all right. Well, what's the board's pleasure? We could look at the appointments. That doesn't seem to be time sensitive. Let's do that, and then we'll go back at 6:10 to the certificates of appreciation.
Do you want to do the list, or do you want to do the finance director?
Let's do the list now. I think the finance director maybe is going to involve a little more explanation or something. But we do have a list of, where's that list in here, David?
I got it.
It's at the back of the agenda.
It's just the
That's what I knew I
second, next
saw.
page.
Okay. Great, yeah, so we've got a list to consider for appointments in addition to finance director, which we'll talk about next. Pat LeBlanc, Farm Pond Advisory Committee for a term to expire 6/15/2020. Sophia Hill, Farm Pond Advisory Committee for a term to expire 6/15/2020. I guess all these are 6/15/2020. Tricia Caldecott, Council on Aging. Joan Dunn, Council on Aging. Helen Braithwaite, Council on Aging. And Jean Rosso, Council on Aging. All of those are term to expire 6/15/2020. Do we have any motion or
I'd
discussion?
make a motion, but as I was looking through this, Jean Rosso for the Council on Aging said she did not want to be reappointed. She wanted to become an associate member.
Do we allow that? Do we allow people not to be reappointed, Paul? Is that-
She is
You
now.
can just appoint her as an
All right, so we'll appoint her as an associate member. Is that the amendment to the
Yeah.
list? Okay, great.
We don't
And it's great of everybody to serve.
So I move the list as read as amended.
Okay, so the list is read with Jean's position being an associate. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor? All right, and thanks to everybody on that list for volunteering to serve in their, on their committees. Okay, now looks like we've got folks here, everybody for the certificates, so we'll ask if our designated certificate reader, Mr. Durensis, could please do the honors.
This board wants to recognize volunteers and to recognize the service of our many volunteers who have come forward and put in so many hours and so many years to benefit our community. This has been a program we've been doing for about a year now. Today, we want to honor the following. Doug Gassell. Doug has faithfully served on the Farm Pond Advisory Committee from 2004 to 2010. He also was instrumental in the Farm Pond Policy Review Committee from 1996 to 1999. Doug, would you step forward? These are all backwards.
There you go. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you for your service. Doug Ambos. Doug served on the Farm Pond Advisory Committee for many years and is currently serving on the Cable TV Advisory Committee since 2002. Doug, would you step forward?
There you go.
Thank you for your service to the town. Bob Ambos. Bob has served on many committees over the years, such as the School Committee, Town Report Committee, Arts Council, 1958 Townhouse Study Committee. He served as Veterans Agent and has been involved in the annual Veterans Day celebration. Bob currently serves on the Town Forest Committee.
Could I also add one other thing? Bob is the group of Sherborn guys with chainsaws who cut firewood. It's Bob and his crew.
Thank you for your service to the town.
Thank you, Bob. Bob?
Next is Phyllis Braun. Phyllis has served on many committees, such as the Disability Advisory Committee, the Agricultural Commission, and currently sits on the Council on Aging Board. Phyllis, would you come forward?
When we earn it.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Finally, Ruth Stewart. Ruth has volunteered her service to the town for over 10 years. Some of the committees Ruth has served on is the Insurance Advisory Committee, the Ambulance Usage Committee, the Employee Health Insurance Advisory Committee, and she currently sits on the Council on Aging Board. Ruth, would you step forward, please? Thank you for your service to the town.
Thanks, Ruth. Thank you, Ruth. Hey, Ruth. That's great. Thanks, Paul. So let's go back to discussion of appointments of the town accountant. If we could. David, do you want to give us some background here?
Yeah, just as background, we have not had a full-time appointed finance director, town accountant, which is described in the bylaw for almost 2 years at this point. There was a period we had an outside financial consultant come in who's still working with the finance office on occasion, and Sharon has been here about a year, and she's done an excellent job. She's got us through the budget cycle. She's closed the fiscal year. She transitioned our software to a new software. She's done a great job. I've had several members from advisory tell me that to make sure that we keep her on. And the statute for town accountant allows for an appointment of 1 or 3 years. So this would, I'm recommending an appointment of expiring 6/30/2018 to the position of finance director / accountant.
Okay. I've also had people from advisory ask that we keep Sharon on, and they are very pleased with what she's been doing for them. Any other comments, or?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we appoint Sharon McPherson, Finance Director, for a term June 30, 2018, I believe is the recommendation.
Okay. Second on that. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Sharon. Okay. Still got quite a bit of time until,
And if you, Sharon, if you do it for 10 years and don't take any pay, you can get a certificate. Consider that as an option.
The temporary treasurer.
yeah, where's that on the agenda, Paul?
It's under
A list of appointments.
That's one of the appointments also, okay. And who are we appointing as temporary treasurer?
There was a notice of resignation of the elected treasurer that was going to take effect June 30th. So there was a Board of Selectmen meeting on June 28th. 3 members were there to do what I was requesting, a temporary appointment to the treasurer for a period not to exceed 11 months. And that's what the appointment was. And the intent was to at least get us to the next full-time Board of Selectmen meeting, which is tonight, so that you can have a more in-depth conversation about what you want to do with an appointment. Right now, I'm the appointed treasurer, and I would serve until the end of the 11 months, which would take us through the annual town meeting and the next local election. There are other options. You could, the appointment could go to the next, if there was a special election held, or the board can appoint for a full 2-year term till the end of the expiration of the existing term. We have the bases covered right now. I have an outside firm coming in next week. They'll basically take care of everything to do with the treasurer's office, help us audit everything, close the books, and begin this fiscal year correctly with the new VADAR financial system. And it's all within within the budget allotment already. And the assistant treasurer, Lisa Lynch, has been, stepped up and has been doing a lot of extra hours in this transition period. So I think she'll be looking forward to having some relief with an outside company coming in to help advise. So I wanted to recommend to the board posting the position, because I'm not interested in holding it for 11 months or 2 years. So I was recommending that the board approve posting the position, and then we'll see who's interested in it, see if people, which residents would be interested in the appointment until the expiration of the term or the next election, or a year till the next annual town meeting.
Now, is it required to be a resident as a
The
treasurer if
appointment
they're
does not
appointed?
have to be a resident.
The appointment does not, right?
The appointment can be anyone, but since the position is elected, I would recommend that you find somebody that's a town resident that can be appointed and run for it after the term of their appointment is done. So if the board was moving towards making that position appointed, then I would open it up to anyone to apply and be appointed for it if the board was heading in that direction, but I don't think you'll know that for a while.
No. Well, I mean, we've
It's not a discussion right now.
historically moved in that direction, and it hasn't gotten us very far, and yet we haven't had an elected treasurer in office except for about a year, I guess, 2 years, was it?
Yeah.
2 years, so.
And you can also, I could stay the elected treasurer, and I can just hire or
Appointed treasurer.
appoint assistant treasurers to actually do the work, so it's not interfering with my position. You can appoint the outside company to act as the treasurer for the town, and that's been done with some towns. They just contract with a treasurer for a treasurer.
So you would post a job position, that's what you're recommending? You would post a position, and residents or non-residents could apply, and then you can winnow out whether they're good candidates, and then we could
Right.
work from that?
Yeah. Yeah, there have been three residents already stepped forward that are interested in the position.
Do they have the expertise to do it?
All with financial backgrounds, all would be decent candidates. None of them have been a treasurer before, so there would definitely be, a transitional period or a ramp up while they train and learn what the position is. But that's why I'm putting this company in place to take care of that.
Is the company, how does the cost of that compare to the cost of paying a treasurer?
Slightly cheaper with no benefits.
And it
A
would
lot
s-
cheaper.
It would seem that it would be easier for you to just continue with the outside company because you wouldn't have to train somebody.
Right.
And I guess my last concern would be that if we've got 3 candidates, if we pick one and we allow them to do the job for a period of time, then there's election, that's sort of a real leg up. I'm not sure how fair that is. So I guess all those things sort of lead me to think that it might be good to, if it's a reasonable solution, to continue on with the outside consultant.
Yeah, I mean, this firm is Bay State Financial Services. They've contracted with municipalities and fully provide accounting or treasurer services, whatever's needed. Contracted collector treasurers, that kind of thing. So,
What's the name of the firm? I'm sorry.
Bay State Financial Services. We were exposed to them because they were brought in as a subcontractor to Vadar to help transition some of our information from the Acela to the new system.
So they're not, it's not the same company you've used in the past then, or the same consultant you've used in the
Well,
past?
Suzanne Marchand was from, I can't remember the name of the company, it's in Worcester. And I didn't want to use the same company just because of the split of accounting treasurer duties.
Mhm.
Dave's recommendation at the June 28th meeting was to, his recommended motion was to appoint the town administrator as an interim treasurer until either a new interim treasurer is appointed or a new treasurer is elected. I let Sean and Mark speak for themselves, but I think we all thought that made sense. We just didn't, we actually wanted to give you two a chance to weigh in on it, so.
So that was voted, you can continue with that. The only thing I need is direction on, do you just want those three people to come forward and have a shootout in this room? Or do you want to post it and see if other people are interested? I assume there may be other people interested, but I don't want to post it unless I'm told to post it.
Well, I mean, what Mark just said makes it seem like not posting it and hiring a outside consultant is the most cost-effective way to do it. And probably the least burdensome way to do it. But I mean, for me personally, I would like the job done competently and at the least distraction for you from what you should be doing as town administrator. And I don't know what that is. In other words, I don't know if dealing with a new appointed a treasurer who's never done the job before is more burdensome on you, or if dealing with a consultant is more burdensome on you. I don't know.
So why don't we do everything? Post the position, I can continue as treasurer. We'll have that company come in and start next week, and then as we know more at the next meeting, if we have some people who have applied, you can consider what you'd want to do at that point.
So you'd post it in a way where we don't actually have to make a selection if we decide it's not
Right.
the right thing?
Right.
Okay.
That sounds good to me. If you have a vacancy in an important town position that's ultimately going to be filled by election, it seems like it's a good idea to introduce that issue to the public now,
Mm-hmm.
so that people know that there's a vacancy, and then if you have an opportunity for people to come forward with resumes, we don't want the position of treasurer necessarily to be a popularity contest. We want to have the best qualified person. So it'd be, I think going through the process of posting it without committing is a good way to alert the public that there's opportunities out there. It gives a good opportunity to see what's available.
Okay.
I think at that point, when you're reviewing those people who have applied, you would consider the outside company basically as another applicant, and whether you wanted to proceed that way or not.
All right, I mean, as long as the posting is clear that this is something that's not it's not
May or may
mandatory
not.
that we actually are
Right.
going to end up picking one. Even if they're all qualified, we may decide
Right.
that that's not the way to go.
I'll explain that.
I mean, I would really prefer not to have you spend any significant part of your day either overseeing or doing the treasurer's role. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, when you had to do that, it was distracting.
It's taken very minimal time, thanks to Lisa Lynn, she's here
Yeah.
tonight. There were probably a couple of days, she could have just walked away and left us holding the bag, but
Yeah.
she stayed on there, so.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. So it hasn't been an imposition to me yet.
Okay. So would we need a vote on this? Or you just wanted?
No,
our
no,
advice?
that's
Okay.
fine.
All right, great. Okay, 6:30. So do we have a report now on the grants? Did you say John Higley was coming in, or?
Yeah.
He's in the doorway.
Oh, I didn't recognize him.
Basically, we had a couple of
Hi, John.
grants. Green Communities Grant, Municipal Vulnerability Grant, which John, as chair of the planning board, will explain, and then we had, just to mention, the Complete Streets Award, which we can't stop mentioning enough.
Hi, John.
Hello, hello. Money's good.
Thanks for coming in.
Well, 3 grants. The Green Communities Grant, Sherborn became a green community several years ago, and Michael Lesser, who's chair of the Energy Committee, and Gino submitted a proposal working with the police station to upgrade the HVAC at the police station and get a grant of $39,120 to go towards that. So that's very welcome. The Energy Committee is talking about how to best use that with the choices of contractors and things like that. So that's going to go to making the HVAC system more efficient, and so that's good. The next grant is Complete Streets. This is something that our former director of CM&D, Ed Wagner, and Gino, and our town administrator, David Williams, worked on this proposal, and the grant is $37,152. And this is an engineering study. It's considered Tier 2. The Tier 1 proposal was so well done. I'm going to read this. It says, Tier 1 was the adoption of a complete streets policy, which you, our selectmen, agreed to, and so the adoption of the Complete Streets program, the Complete Streets Coalition of Smart Growth America ranked Sherborn's policy as tied for second best in the country for 2016. So that's.
And that was out of how many communities?
I don't know, but I'm going to say if there's about,
I think it was,
figured the number of states, and Massachusetts has got
I think it was around 1,000, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So number 2 out of 1,000.
it was, yeah, it was a lot. Thank you, Charlie. So this money is for engineering to look at our streets to see how, where there's opportunity to improve them for additional modes. The Complete Streets program is a Massachusetts program trying to make streets better, not just for traffic, but pedestrians and bicycles, and making movement around our communities better, recognizing that the pedestrians and bicycles and things like that are a healthy way to move around through our communities. So the Tier 3 program, which you have to get to Tier 2 to get to Tier 3. So the Tier 3 program is based on that study to identify high priority areas or opportunities. And in our proposal, we're looking at things like adding a sidewalk on the east side of North Main Street and improving intersections and other things that could help with pedestrian and bicycle traffic. So that's a very valuable grant for the engineering study, and the opportunity for $100,000 or more for Tier 3 to make improvements would be very welcome. The third thing is Municipal Vulnerability Program. This is a $15,000 engineering study. It's a grant for $15,000 to evaluate Sherborn's vulnerability relative to the impacts of climate change. And this is good in a lot of ways. I think, for one thing, a lot of the original funding and still municipal vulnerability has been focused on flooding on coastal communities. So the suburbia areas really haven't been getting, I think, in my very biased view, haven't been getting the attention. And so I think getting an engineering study to look at mitigation opportunities and understand what hazards we might confront is a great thing. That could include things like groundwater depreciation, or if there's periods of severe drought and severe rain, stormwater control, things like that that are relative to climate change. So this is another real good thing for Sherborn and for towns like Sherborn. So
Great.
Congratulations to you and to David.
yeah, I guess I really want to stress that our town planner, our town administrator, and Michael Lesser on the Energy Committee are really doing a superb job. I'm here to take credit for their work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. Anything more you want to say about that, David, since we've got 11 minutes to kill until our hearing? No?
I got something to follow up on it, maybe.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Paul?
The sidewalk on the east side of North Main Street. We were supposed to be getting the right-of-way cleared by the developer for Abbey Roads, and as I understood it, he was waiting for some engineering to be done. I think you told me the engineering was done, but I don't see that.
I thought engineering was done and that there was an issue on whether something had to go to the historical commission or not, but maybe John knows something
Yeah,
about that.
the agreement in our permit for the Abbey Road development was that they would move the wall 6 feet from the edge, figuring that was enough. And as we did the study, we realized that the telephone pole and the relative to the wall in the section that's the pinch point, 6 feet wouldn't really be enough. So we've asked our engineer to revise his design so that we can just get by the pinch point. And so we actually have a cooperative agreement with the developer, the Abbey Road developer. So it's pending getting a revision to the engineering design that we had done.
John, since since the wall's going to be moved and that area's going to be dug up, is there any opportunity to bury the lines there so the pole doesn't become an issue at all? Just for that short run?
We talked about another opportunity is to move the wall, the pole, and make it a little easier to sort of minimize the amount of stone wall. The other thing is that there's a couple of trees there that would very likely be impacted because of their proximity to the wall that would interfere with their roots. So we're trying to, the section that would get moved by the agreement is 10 to 20 feet. It's not much, so it's not enough to work in major utility work. And likewise, the idea of moving the pole is another way to sort of mitigate the impact. We'd like to save those trees, and we'd like to do something that's really going to work. At one point, at the Complete Streets grant, that may well play into this, where we could do a bigger project and do more than just the amount of wall the amount of sidewalk work relative to the Abbey Road project, but maybe we could do more with a Complete Streets grant. So now that we have this grant, we can do the engineering study, the Tier 2 engineering study, and maybe that would play into this also. But
Didn't we already have engineering for that sidewalk up
we did, and
the road?
we did have an engineering study, and it was done in a grand way, an expensive way, and it was way beyond the scope relative to the Abbey Road project.
Right.
So, so looking at the amount of money it would take to make use of that design didn't seem to be on the radar screen for now. So it's an okay design if we had a big grant to pay for it. In the meantime, we thought, well, if we can go ahead with the original agreement with the Abbey Road developer and just take care of the pinch point, then we could we could build a sidewalk that would be usable and useful, but it won't go all the way up to Elliott Street or anything at this point. We could do that piece. So that's where it stands right now. And I think the best thing right now is to get the stone wall moved in a reasonable manner that will enable a sidewalk to go in when we get funding.
And is the planning board or somebody in touch with the developer about getting that to happen?
Yep, and we had a meeting, and it's agreeable. The next step is for us to get the engineering study modified, just for that pinch point.
Thank you.
Great. Good question, Paul. All right.
Before you roll off and lose our time before the hearing, does someone want to introduce that guy?
Yes.
Good.
Chris Canny is filling in as our interim building commissioner right now.
You want to go up to the mic and say hi, Chris? Thanks.
Chris replaced Henry Fontaine about 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, somewhere in that
Has been
neighborhood.
doing a great job, and he's brought some of his own processes that he's implementing, and have heard only good things about Chris and what he's doing right now.
It's great.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to Sherborn.
Well, thank you.
We got 6 minutes here to fill, so.
Oh, great, great.
Don't go
Is
too
there a
quick.
guitar? I can come up with something. I'm not sure how much of an introduction we really need to make, but I'm excited to be here in town. I grew up very nearby. Grew up in Needham. I built in Dover and Sherborn and Needham for 15 or 20 years with my father and my uncle, and so this is familiar territory for me. I live in Holliston, and so I'm close by. And during the normal business hours, I do the commercial plans and permit review for the town of Framingham. And after and before that, I am here doing this job. And so far, it's been good. Everybody's been very friendly and helpful, and haven't had too many major run-ins except with a certain selectman whose new house is finally finished. But
And Chris's parents are also Sherborn residents.
yes, my parents live on Woodland Street. And,
He's
And
interim.
David just mentioned that you've improved some of the processes. What was,
there's a lot of redundancy, which I think was just a leftover from some of the old permitting process, like duplicate paperwork for what appears to be only my eyes. There's a building permit card, and there's also a building permit form, and there seem to be all of the exact same information, and yet for some reason we're retaining both copies of those things. There's just a handful of other little items. I'm just trying to sort of streamline the process. I really just want to make it easier for the public to be able to apply for a permit and have a permit issued, and hopefully make it a little less confusing. We offer an awful lot of special permit forms. Like there's a siding, roofing, and windows specific form. There is a remodeling your house form. There is a commercial application. Anyway, just trying to make those work in a friendly way for, especially in this town where there's a lot of homeowners that are pulling permits and they're not necessarily professionals. Try to make it so that they can understand what they're actually applying for and what they need to provide for paperwork.
it's great. Thank you.
Anyway,
Thanks.
David, you mentioned he's interim?
Yeah, I mean, in accordance with the bylaw, at some point, we will have to post the position in order to make it official, and then come in and do a formal appointment. In the meantime, it's hiring under me with his duties as building commissioner, and so it's titled interim, but
Okay.
he will hopefully apply for it when we post it. But that was
Are you
discussed.
interested in staying if the opportunity's there?
yeah, I am. Yeah, No,
That was
this is-
discussed with him before.
This is a good fit, my wife is home with our 3 kids right now, so having a second half of a job is not a bad thing for me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, so we've got about 2 minutes. If anybody, why don't we take a 2-minute break and reconvene at quarter of. You can keep the video on, Rick. I wouldn't inflict that on you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Rick, we're back. Back in action here. Okay, good. I'll read the hearing notice, and then the next item is a dangerous dog hearing. The Town of Sherborn Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, July 13, 2017, at 6:45 PM in the Sherborn Town Hall, Room 204A, located at 19 Washington Street, Sherborn, Mass., to consider a complaint submitted pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 157A, that a dog known as Blitz, which is owned or kept at 187 Maple Street in the town of Sherborn, is a dangerous dog or nuisance dog, as those terms are defined in General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 136A. The Board of Selectmen may make such findings in order concerning the restraint or disposal of said dog as may be deemed necessary. Votes may be taken. So, that's the announcement. I think the way we would handle this is have, if Lieutenant Tedstone wants to report, you were the one who received the initial complaint, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so if you don't mind giving the background of that, thank you. Yes, please.
Okay, so on Wednesday, June 14th, I spoke with, you're Laura, right? Laura Haney, in reference to a complaint regarding a dog that was owned by Braden, who is here tonight. Laura advised me that there's a history of bites. She was concerned about the dog, slightly concerned about the well-being of her daughter that lived in the home with the dog, and ultimately gave me some background and examples of the bites and the dog Blitz's behavior. She then also requested a dangerous dog hearing when I spoke with her. I explained the process to her. She said she wanted to move forward with the process. And then basically what I did is I followed up with the other owners or victims, if you will, that she provided me. I spoke with Braden, and I interviewed Braden, or I spoke with Braden, and he brought Blitz out in the yard, and I kind of got a good look at Blitz for a few minutes, and then basically just compiled the report based on everything I was given, and moved it forward to the hearing process.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and we have a copy of this report, which is part of the record, and we also have copies of various letters and emails and the like that we received. The complaint was filed by Laura Haney. I don't know, Paul, is it necessary to read these into the record, or can we just have them in?
Just one thing. The statute says that we're supposed to examine the facts here from witnesses under oath. So as you
We should put
proceed,
Lieutenant Tedstone under oath, is that what
you
you're
should
saying?
put everybody under oath
Okay.
to play it safe.
So is there anyone who wants to speak here, please stand and raise your right hand and just swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay. So those are the 4 people who are going to speak tonight. Very good.
If I could,
Yes.
the information that you have, probably some of it needs to be redacted if it's going to be read.
Okay. I wasn't planning to read it then, since I wouldn't know what to redact. Have you summarized fully what it is you think you can tell us without the redactions, or?
I think it's more important to hear from them. I mean, it's
Okay.
basically me just telling you what they told me.
In terms
so.
of your observations of the dog?
So my observations of the dog didn't seem too aggressive to me. He seemed more fearful and kind of shied away and ran away and barked and looked at me and ran away and barked. So, you know, there's some information here from a behaviorist. I was just given this. I briefly skimmed it. He could certainly speak more to the temperament of the dog, but you know, I was given a couple examples of Blitz attacking in seriously injuring a few dogs, so I think that's important to know. But again, I think that will be brought out here. In terms of my interaction with the dog, it was brief. It was probably 10 or 15 minutes total. And in that time, he didn't seem aggressive to me. He seemed more afraid, ran away, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, moving forward, he's not going to be aggressive to someone else.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Lieutenant Tedstone at this point? No? Okay. So I guess we have a list of people who wanted to comment. Laura Haney, and you're the complainant, right? Okay. Do you want to go up and take the microphone? And remember, you're under oath.
So I'm Laura Haney. I was the one who requested this hearing. It's probably an unusual scenario because I lived with the dog and my stepson up until this incident. I feel that I have a moral and a legal obligation to let the town know about Blitz's prior behavior. As Sergeant Tedstone said, if you met him, he will cower a little bit. He's shy. If you dangle any small dog in front of him, it will be a very different story. My concern is that my dog, Hemi, wasn't the first dog. He actually grew up with this dog. So I was home alone with him. He started acting very aggressive that afternoon, so I put my dog in his crate because I thought Blitz was acting strange. Took him out later when he was crying, was working, and it was not provoked, as Braden may say. There was no, it was quiet, and Blitz just started attacking him, and I was home alone and had to throw a gate on Blitz to get him off my dog. Anybody who's been through this, I had to carry him as blood was gushing through my fingers, and I felt his heartbeat stop, and he went limp. He woke up a few minutes later, started screeching in pain, and I got him to the vet. And it's actually a miracle that he's alive. I don't know if IVG provided the details. I did have request that Sergeant Tedstone speak with the emergency medical folks, but it is a miracle. He is alive, and I'm very thankful for that. My concern is that Hemi, as I said, isn't the first dog. He's not the second dog. He's not the third dog. He's the fourth dog that's been seriously attacked in Blitz's 2-year history. Nancy's here tonight to talk about her scenario where her Sophie was almost killed, went through exactly what my dog went through. And my concern is I'm not requesting Blitz be put down. I actually love the dog. I think he's a great dog. I think his owner is irresponsible, doesn't provide him never provided him adequate training, doesn't socialize him, doesn't exercise him. I've been complaining, it's been a longstanding concern of mine in the house that Braden will sleep until 1 or 2 in the afternoon and the dog is in his crate crying to go to the bathroom. He hasn't been out in hours. The dog basically is let out to go to the bathroom, comes back in and just lays around the house. So his energy level, his lack of socialization, and yes, he was confronted by a little dog when he was a puppy, and that they're going to say that that's what caused it. My concern is that during this whole scenario, several days went by, and Braden showed no empathy towards what happened, didn't hug me, didn't say I'm sorry, didn't acknowledge it. I asked them what they were going to do about it to get him into behavioral training, and they ignored me for several days, and I did approach him, and he laughed at me and said he didn't say he was sorry because he doesn't feel it's his fault. This lack of empathy, the lack of accountability really concerns me, and I will tell you that I have been with him on at least one occasion at the barber where he's let Blitz off leash and Blitz runs around. If there are any small dogs in the vicinity, there's a problem. That dog is probably not going to be alive or risk serious harm. He's 100 pounds. Braden couldn't control him when he attacked Sophie. He was coming out of Braden's car, and Braden wasn't able to secure him. So I'm concerned both, I'm just requesting that he be mandated to be on a leash and possibly a muzzle when he's out in public, because the leash, I don't know that a leash is going to stop him. It hasn't stopped him in the 3 other attacks. He wasn't on a leash, obviously, in the house. So I just want to prevent other people from experiencing what I've been through. It's seriously impacted my life. I've moved out, and I just don't want anybody to have to go through this. So, thank you.
Great, thanks. Does anybody on the board have questions?
I just have one other comment, and I don't know if, I didn't see the letter, but I know that Fiona Fernandez, both their dogs were attacked by Blitz, her husband informed me that not only did he attack the dogs, that he aggressively jumped on Fiona. I know Fiona wrote an email. I wasn't privy to that email, so I know, and I agree, if you just encounter him one-on-one, he appears shy, but if you're holding a small dog, you're at risk. And I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
I had a question, if you could.
Mm-hmm.
What's this a picture of?
Some of the injuries of my Chihuahua.
So this is your dog?
Mm-hmm.
And are those staples?
Yes. On both sides, and he actually had to have his chest opened up to ensure that he didn't have any punctures to his lungs. His ribs, several ribs were broken. They actually had to go in and surgically remove a whole section of ribs from his body.
And this picture?
I submitted 2. I assume there was both sides of his body showing all the staples.
Yeah, this.
He took him in his mouth and he shook him, and the concern was that he shook him so violently that the air pockets get underneath the skin, and when that happens, I just learned this, there's a risk of all the skin tissue dying, so they were fearful that he wasn't going to survive. But $10,000 later, they were in some really good care. We think he's not going to lose the tissue, but if he does, that's going to be probably, I don't know how much skin grafts and a lot of surgery for the animal.
So you spent $10,000?
Mm-hmm.
Were you-
I did, and Nancy has probably incurred the same. So.
That's all I had.
Anybody else? Questions, Chuck? No?
Paul asked the question about the veterinary costs, so that's the only question I have.
I see, okay. And Nancy Bloomstein's another person who wanted to speak with a complaint? Okay, thank you.
Hi. So, I'll try to be brief. I just want to say, on July 30th of 2016, I was walking my 13-week-old puppy, Sophie, through a common area on Algonquin Trail in Ashland. As I was walking my dog, she was on a leash, and out of nowhere came the German Shepherd Blitz, who began to attack my puppy, put it in his mouth, and was shaking her like a rag doll, like it was a prey, like he was proud that he had prey in his mouth. Sophie was a little bit of a thing. She began screeching like nothing I've ever heard, and she was bleeding. As the attack was happening, a young man, Braden, came over to try to stop the attack. He pulled the German Shepherd off of Sophie. After the attack, I immediately went home and I rushed Sophie to the emergency vet IVG hospital in Natick. When we got there, Sophie was in shock, they said. Her blood pressure was dangerously low, and the vet wasn't even sure that she was going to survive. She wasn't stable enough for them to do surgery on her. After spending the night at the animal hospital, she had to be transferred to another hospital in Woburn, and she needed to undergo surgery to her chest to make sure that there wasn't any damage. As Laura said, I can't remember exactly how she put it. Puncture wound. Okay. One thing that's really concerning to me is when I contacted the animal control officer in Ashland, they informed me that Blitz was not up to date on his rabies vaccine. I don't understand how that can happen, but that's what I was told. I don't want anyone else to have to go through what I went through or what Laura went through or our other neighbors, Joel and Fiona. It was absolutely the worst experience of my life. What we went through, what all of us went through, was truly traumatizing. And I know for a long time I was really afraid even to be outside. And there were a few times when I saw Braden walking the dog and I was out with my dog and I just ran the other way because I was just petrified. And I'm quite sure Laura was too. The last thing I just want to say is, how many dogs have to be attacked before someone does something about Blitz?
Anybody up here have any questions, Paul?
Oh,
much-
could I just add one thing?
Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I do have pictures on my phone very similar to what Laura did if they need to be seen. Pictures of surgery and the sutures and,
I don't see any pictures.
okay.
How much did you spend on veterinary bills?
Almost $8,000, just shy of $8,000.
And were you reimbursed?
Yes.
Reimbursed through their homeowners, yes.
Thank you.
Quick question, how old was, and how large was your dog at the time of the attack?
At the time, she was, no, she wasn't 20, I don't know, maybe about 15 pounds, maybe even less, because she was only 13 weeks old.
And if I remember right, a Wheaton Terrier,
A Wheaton Terrier, yes,
so
yeah.
still relatively young.
Very
Yeah.
young, yeah, very young, yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Braden Haney, what's this week, that's you? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Braden Haney, obviously the owner of Blitz. First off, I just want to say sorry to everyone that my dog has affected or injured or whatever, so be it. I just want to start with a brief history. The three of us and my younger sister, Madison, went and got Blitz when we were, or it was like almost 3 years ago in October. We got him from Holliston Pick-a-Pup in Holliston, and we lived in Ashland in a apartment complex which allowed dogs, and we had two other dogs living with us, Hemi and Chloe, and they got along pretty good. And when Blitz was like 6 months old, about directly attached to our building, two small dogs. One went after Blitz and bit him on the face, and he then grabbed the dog in its mouth and to get him off from being attacked from this small dog when we were walking by, and the other owner didn't have their dog on a leash. The second time with that same dog next door, I guess the dog was not on a leash again, and Blitz, I don't think, was on a leash, and he chased that dog around, but nothing, like no injuries occurred. And then with Fiona's, what's the other dog's name? Sophie, yeah. Me and my girlfriend had just brought Blitz back from a park, and he jumped out of the car, and I couldn't react fast enough to grab him, and went up to Sophie and bit her, Sophie and bit her, and I grabbed him off, and that was the end of that. And throughout the time we lived at the condo, the small dog, the Chihuahua, had attacked Blitz multiple times and bit him on the face, and we kind of just laughed it off, and they have a nickname for him, calling him Cujo, which was every time that he aggressively went after my dog or any of us, if we go towards my little sister and he's being held. And so he's, from a young age, he's not had good relationship with small dogs. them attacking him and him being attacked. And I really think with some more training, Blitz could be a fine dog. He is loving, and anyone he gets to meet, I've taken him to the barber in Sherborn multiple times. He's played with small dogs, big dogs. He's played with small dogs of my friends, big dogs of my friends. And also, part of the story that wasn't told or told differently was when Blitz attacked the small dog Hemi. Supposedly, what the story was after it happened was that Blitz went up to this other dog's cage like he always does, and then Hemi is a very territorial small dog with bones, cages, people, and then therefore went after my dog, and then after that he retaliated in self-defense. So, I mean, that's kind of my case or point. I don't know.
People have, we're going to have questions here, and then you can have a chance to go back up to the microphone later.
Has Blitz ever attacked, jumped on, or bit a human?
No,
Okay.
I wasn't there.
We're going to
don't
do
recall
one
it.
person at a time speaking. Could you answer the question?
Yeah, I've never seen him. I wasn't aware of that he jumped on Fiona ever. It must have not been while I was handling him. So, if anything, it was probably not aggressive. I have a 12-year-old little sister that he loves to play with outside all day and runs around with, and would protect her and never harm her. I've had friends that have come over and met the dog and played with him. I've taken him to other people's houses, played with other dogs, taken him to parks in Ashland and Sherborn, and he's been off the leash and run around and played with big and small dogs.
And what kind of obedience training has Blitz had, if any?
We took him to the Bay State kennel where they breed German Shepherds and train police dogs. And the trainer is Mike Citro.
Would you agree that you could have done better as a dog owner?
Yes, I could have done better and taken more precaution, but I wasn't really aware of stuff like this. And since that he was attacked when he was only 6 months old, it kind of created a stigma. So I guess I had to kind of do more, I guess, because of what had happened and that the dog in our house was a little aggressive towards him. And we moved to Sherborn, so we weren't in a small apartment complex with a lot of people and other dogs, and it's been good since, besides this.
Well, often when there's a problem with a dog, the problem really is that the owner isn't spending enough time with the dog or spending enough time training the dog or bonding with the dog. Do you feel that you've been responsible in that respect, or that
Yes, I do.
would you be willing to do more than what you've done?
Yes, of course, yes.
What more would you or could you propose doing than what you've done so far?
In the letter that you received, Ray, so he raised the behaviorist that looked at Blitz and spent some time at our house and got to know Blitz, and he said that he recommends a 6-week like training period where I'd work with him and kind of desensitize him to like being around small dogs and something like that.
So you are agreeable to that kind of program?
Yes.
Have you ever considered an electronic collar?
Yeah, we have one we installed on our property in Sherborn.
No, I don't mean the perimeter things. I mean a collar on the dog with a button that you have in your hand, and if he starts misbehaving,
Oh, no.
You-
I mean, we don't have one, but I would get him one if that's what we need to do.
we heard a statement that you sleep till 1 in the afternoon and the dog's not walked in the morning. Is that
No,
true?
it's not true. I've slept till 1 on the weekends and stuff, and the dog, I don't even put him in my cage. He sleeps in my bed or on the floor next to me, and as soon as I get up, I let him out, and I'm a very good dog owner.
At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you let him out for the first time that day?
If I sleep in on like the weekends or if I'm not doing anything. But 1 is an exaggeration also. It's not like he's locked in a cage all day while I'm home.
Do you work during the day?
I'm going to Framingham State and also looking for internships right now.
And so where's the dog when you're at school?
Just at home.
In a cage or just?
No, just
within the house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty appalled that, it had to get to this point where you would start to think about taking some corrective action. And we've got this report from Animal Behavior Associates that talks about the training for the dog, but like Paul said, it's really all about the owner. And what are you going to do differently if you're allowed to keep this dog?
Well, the fact that the dog that started this whole incident is out of the house, I think, is helping a lot. Also, the fact that we don't live in the apartment complex where there's other aggressive dogs that have attacked Blitz as well. My dog isn't just the attacker. He's been attacked by 2 of the 4 dogs first, so he's just was trying to protect himself 2 of those times. One time I guess you can say I was sort of negligent, but he just jumped out of the car jumped out behind my girlfriend after she got out of the door, and the other dog was very close to our property and was just, I don't know, acting on instinct from what has happened before.
So what are you going to do differently?
I'm gonna, if we can, do the 6-week program and try to train him as best as I can.
Anybody else have questions, comments?
My concern about the 6-week program is that there's nothing to protect everybody else. Your neighbors, other dogs.
Well, he would never bite a person. He's too shy, too.
I don't know, I could well imagine that if somebody's has a small dog and tried to get in the middle of that, based on what we've seen here, they could well get injured.
Possibly, but I don't think that would happen.
But just so the record is clear, you are agreeable to accepting a mandatory requirement for a training program of 6 weeks duration?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we have other witnesses, but I am concerned that that's not sufficient. When we moved to Sherborn, leash law was described as not one free bite, but this is 4 dogs that have been attacked, and we have email that a woman was knocked down by Blitz. So I think restraint, a requirement that he be restrained and on a leash makes sense. Other members of your household and other dog owners shouldn't have to look to their insurance policy to cover $8,000 and $10,000 costs. So I think I would be disposed to requiring a insurance for any future bites, and that when he's outside the house, that he be restrained and probably muzzled. Maybe we might take a different look at it after we hear from Mr. McSully at Animal Behavior Associates, but I don't think the training program alone is sufficient.
Doug Hayden was, if that's his last name, was put under oath and is at the table. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Me?
Yeah,
I'm Braden's father.
yeah.
I didn't write my name or put myself on the oath, but
to speak.
So you're not going to speak?
Well, he's not under oath either, so.
I thought he stood up as one of the, about 4 people stood up.
Are you under oath to speak, or?
I wasn't, but I can if you,
Okay.
I mean, if you have any questions for me, excuse me?
So just raise your hand, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Paul, you have questions?
Well, Braden lives with you.
Correct.
Is there any backup role that you can play with regard to this dog?
Well, I would participate in any training that he was involved in, of course, and even my daughter would probably want to be involved as well. When Braden's at school or out, everybody kind of shared in taking care of him or letting him out. We did put an electric fence in, and that's one of the reasons we moved to Sherborn, was just for the acreage and to get him more exercise, which he has been getting. And so that's been a benefit to him, I think. But yeah, of course, I'd be involved in anything that, any training aspect or anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, we taught, if Braden's out or at school, or he's working on music with his friends, I'm there, and I usually put him in his crate at night if it's at night, or I'm involved with feeding him sometimes. If he's away, I take him out and let him out and go outside. I've been involved with him as well. My 12-year-old daughter has been involved. She likes to work with him and teaching him different things, so she's never had any problems with him. Sometimes he plays with her, jumps up on her, but nothing aggressive at all, anything like that. So, but she loves to do that and play with him. And then my daughter has a lot of friends that come over and have slept over, and recently she had 3 girls over different nights this weekend, and there has never been any problems, any aggression towards the girls. If anything, if he's inside, he wants to go out and play with them and do things with them, but he's never ever been aggressive to these girls. He might jump up on them to play with them, or but he goes out and plays with them, and their parents. Since this incident, I've talked to one of the mothers, and she didn't have a problem having her daughter come over. It was from Sherborn, and she slept over one night, and another family from Ashland let their 2 daughters come over, and they slept over, and the dog was out and about, and there was never any problems, and they weren't fearful of him in any way.
How old is your son?
Braden?
Yeah.
He's 22.
The point of my question was, given his age and given the history that we've heard, whether you're willing to step up and do more, and if so, what more?
Well, I help take care of him when he's not here. I would be involved in any training with him. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, or there's something else you're referring to, or?
I'm giving you an opportunity to try and present something that would work for the community and for the people who've been affected.
Well, that's why we called, I mean, when this happened, I called around to different places, and I called Tufts, and I called our vet, I called the original trainer, and then Kim Morrow recommended that we get in touch with Ray McSorley, who we did, and he came over and sat with us and evaluated him, and I think that's what he's recommended here. Seems like a good program to, I mean, if you have questions for him based on his experience and what he's done, you know, this is what he came up with as far as the proposal. So my daughter was there at the time when he did it, meet Blitz for the first time, and he didn't see any aggression towards her or anything whatsoever. And as far as jumping on this woman, Fiona, it was kind of recently that we all heard about it. I had never heard about it before that. I don't know what that means. If she was holding the dog, if the dog was down on the ground, if he was excited and jumped up, it was kind of the first time I heard about it personally.
Well, I've had 7 kids, and I've gone through the times when they were 22. Caring for an animal is a serious responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of time. It means giving priority to that animal. It means doing things that when they aren't convenient. The dog has to be fed. The dog has to be loved, walked, paid attention to. Not every 22-year-old has that level of responsibility and maturity. And where there's a parent at the house, by default, some of this is going to fall back on you.
Well, it does fall back. That's what I had said. If he's away, or I let him out in the morning, I put him to bed at night, I feed him on occasion, make sure he has water. And my daughter helps out as well. She likes to make sure that, you know, he gets out, or he's fed, or he has water. So we all help out on it, you know, when we need to.
Well, one of the things I drew from the report of Raymond J. McSorley is that the dog is somewhat neglected. Blitz exhibited clear indications of a wary, nervous, insecure animal. That's all I had. One of the witnesses said she wanted to do a rebuttal. Do you want to entertain that or not?
Well, I think we can, but I also want to hear from Mr. McSorley, too.
Is he here?
Is Mr. McSorley here?
Yeah, he's right over there.
Oh, Ray McSorley?
Are you Ray McSorley? Oh, okay, great, good. Do you want to come up and?
Yeah, I wasn't sworn in.
Okay, so raise your hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Okay, great. Just want to come up there.
So if, yeah, let Mr. McSorley, if he's going to, yes, please do.
I really wasn't going to, had intentions of speaking because pretty much what I had to say, I put in the evaluation in the letter to you gentlemen. But I have some very serious concerns about this situation. I mean, it's a very, very serious situation at this point. We've got a dog that's seriously aggressive towards other dogs, dangerously so. And I don't know whether I can turn it around. I'll know fairly quickly. And if, say, after a short time, if you agree to the probation period, if I see, and if a short time, if things aren't coming around, I'm going to be very honest with you and tell you, and I'll stop it from my perspective. But my other concern is, and I spoke to Braden about this, my concern is that I don't know as he's taking this as seriously as he should. I don't know as he understands the severity of the situation as it is right now. And I've been working with problem dogs and owners for over 40 years. And this is not a good situation. It's very serious. At this point, it's limited to small dogs, basically, at least from what I could get from the meeting with them. They're pretty much between 8 and 15 pounds. As I said in the report, that when I went to put the slip lead over him, he showed a little bit of defensive aggression towards me. Nothing serious, and he settled, and so we did maybe 5 minutes of work. But the first thing that has to take place here is that the owner has to be prepared to make a complete commitment on this. Because if they don't, if they're not prepared for it, it's not going to work. So that has to be there. And I'll know whether it's there or not pretty soon.
So your program is
I
to,
can work with the dog for X number of times, you know, and get the dog better. But if the commitment isn't there from the owner, ultimately it's going to fail.
So if you have this program, because you say a couple of things in here, you know, one was he's in serious need of a lot more training, and then you talk about a 6-week program, which I don't know if that's a lot more training or just an initial amount of training.
We can do a lot of work in 6 weeks.
So after that 6 weeks is over, what would be the continued program after that? Would it involve more training? Would there be a schedule of something, or?
Yeah, it's a lifelong commitment.
Yeah. So there'd be exercises or things the owner would have to do with the dog to keep the training?
Things that we worked on for 6 weeks would have to be continued
Yeah.
for as long as he has a dog. That's what gets people in trouble with their dogs. They have someone work with them and their dog, and the dog comes around very well, and they say, oh, well, that's great, the problem's solved. No, the problem isn't solved, not permanently. It depends on the commitment of the person. The commitment has to be there, and I would be less than responsible if I didn't say that.
And how much time would be required by Braden?
Pardon?
How much time would be required by Braden?
Per week?
Well, during the training and then thereafter?
I don't know. I would probably see them once or twice. on a weekly basis.
That's what you would spend with him, but how much time does he need to spend with the dog on a daily basis?
Not a tremendous amount of time, what people would consider training, but the truth of the matter is that we're always working with our dogs. Either positively or negatively, but we're always having some interaction with them. And so that part that I put early in the evaluation, that Blitz was continuously jumping on Braden and Doug. So it jumped right off the page at me immediately there's a highly insecure dog here. And he was very uncomfortable with having me there. And that's where that jumping up on the owners was all about. It's not about jumping up just to get affection. It's about jumping up from a primarily insecure perspective with the dog, and he's saying, oh, you know what, I'm really uncomfortable about this person here. So, help me out here, okay? That's why I wrote up that part about, an insecure dog.
Mr. McSorley, thank you for your letter. Your letter was very helpful. Do you have an opinion about, in addition to the training or during the training, whether or not Blitz should be muzzled? One of the things I'm concerned about is, I think you have a small child that may be around the dog. There's an indication that the dog has jumped on at least one other person. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not Blitz should be muzzled until the completion of this training?
I don't think so. I've used muzzles very rarely, and it's a management approach. It can help to manage a problem, but it certainly doesn't do anything to help resolve a problem. And so, as a last resort, I would. Some dogs handle muzzles quite well. Other dogs, they cannot handle them at all, and it actually makes the situation worse. So, I'm not a big fan of it. If we've got a dog that's seriously aggressive around people that come into the house and poses us, a real threat. I've had a few muzzled in situations like that. The problem with that is, though, that as soon as a person comes through the door and sees a dog with a muzzle on, then at the least, they're stressed, they're tense, and the dog's picked it up that quickly, right? And at the worst, then they become frightened, and their body language and their energy now goes, so it's just, yeah. In general, if we can stay away from it, I prefer to stay away from it. But also, certainly not put the dog in a situation where early on he can have a repeat.
This program that you're offering is both a training for the dog and a training for the owner. Is that fair to say?
Both?
Both?
Both. I'll tell you what I would, if we do this, I would like very much to, on a weekly basis, be in touch with Sergeant Tedstone with a progress report. if he'd be open to it, but I would like to stay in touch with him on a weekly basis and provide him with a written progress report on how things are going.
Well, to turn that around a little bit, if you find after a few days that your program is not going to work,
I think a
would
few
you-
days is way too early.
the time period is not the
But
important thing.
but within a reasonably short time,
Let me put it a different way.
if I'm convinced that
Would
it's
you
not
commit-
working, I would walk away from it.
Well, your walking away from it doesn't help the community. The question is, would you advise our animal control officer if you determined that the program that you had outlined is not working?
Would I inform him of that?
Yes,
Absolutely,
without waiting for 6 weeks to go by.
absolutely. Yeah, I think I just basically said that, a short time ago, that if I see that we're just not making progress here, then I'm just wasting my time. And I don't want to do that. I suggested this primarily because I hate to lose a dog. I hate to see a dog lost. And if at all possible, I'd like to be able to save this dog. And right now, I don't know as I can. But I'm willing to give it a try.
So, do we
Yeah.
can,
Can I ask one more question? So if we were to agree to this, what measures would you recommend during the 6 weeks to ensure that Blitz doesn't attack any other dogs?
What?
So if we were to do this, we've got a 6-week period during which we still have presumably Blitz as a dangerous animal. What other measures could we require so that during that time, there isn't another attack? Any kind of physical restraints or?
Oh, when I'm not there,
That, exactly, yes.
I'd have to lay out some parameters, and, strict guidelines, to protect people's dogs, yeah. Again, that comes back to the owner. There has to be a commitment. If I see that the commitment's not there, then I'm not gonna continue. I'm not gonna waste my time with something that I know in my head isn't gonna work.
What you're looking for?
I think we're ready to make a decision unless there's other witnesses or more information that people want to bring forward.
I think Sergeant Tedstone may have some comments, and I think Mrs. Haney had some comments or reaction.
Am I excused?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant?
Thanks. So I think what Mr. McSorley said is great. Like I said, I briefly skimmed through his letter. He clearly knows what he's talking about. He's got an extensive amount of knowledge and background in the field. I provided some boilerplate recommendations, which are usually just that, they're recommendations if the board does determine a dog to be, or deem the dog to be dangerous. My concern is that during this 6-week period, the behavior and the ramifications of Blitz's behavior are kind of contingent upon Braden's responsibly handling him and supervising him. It's been said that the dog's insecure. I think the dog's unpredictable. The dog appears uncomfortable. My recommendation would be to look at these boilerplate recommendations and use them in conjunction with the 6-week training period.
Right.
In moving forward after the 6 weeks, there's no guarantee that this dog is going to miraculously be, going to be cured and not have any behavioral issues moving forward. So I think that's something that will need to be revisited after the training with Mr. McSorley. Just because it's been small dogs at this point, but dogs are unpredictable and anything can happen moving forward. So I think it's a lot of risk to say that we'll put them through a 6-week training period and then we're done with them for the rest of our lives and his lives, because there's a significant amount of risk associated with that thought process, I'd say.
Thank you. I was coming to the same conclusion as well. I think it's got to be part of both.
I just, I don't want to take everyone's time because I know we're all wanting to go home, but I just want to comment that I know we are all under oath, and I'm just stating that I feel there were several truths in some of Braden's statements, but I'm not going to belabor that point. After listening to Mr. McSorley and Sergeant Ted Stone speak again, I feel a little bit more reassured, but I still have concern about this 6-week evaluation period. I'm out of the house. I no longer have to worry about my dog. I do worry about our neighbors are here, and they occasionally have a small dog visit. I think it's one of their relatives. I know they are. And there is an invisible dog fence, but the dog has run through it before, and that's not going to stop him. If he sees the bait on the other side of the fence, which is a small dog, he's going to go after it. So I just want to make sure that there isn't a 5th dog. And if there is a 5th dog, I'm just curious how it will be communicated. Will animal control definitely know, and will they communicate it to you folks? Because I'm stepping out of the picture, but I just need to know that it's not going to happen to another person. That's all.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody up here have, Braden, did you have any final comments or anything since, okay.
Oh, I'm probably not going to be living in Sherborn for more than 2 years. So.
Okay. Anybody up here have further comments or thoughts? I mean, I can tell you, I mean, I thought that was a very sound suggestion that Sergeant Ted Stone had in terms of combining the opportunity to see if we can, as Mr. McSorley put it, save the dog, allow it to be trained, but also impose some limitations, even so, on what the dog can do and how it can be kept. And I have to say, in terms of just looking at the, listening to it and looking at the discussions we had before with Braden and his father about the dog, I still think there are a lot of explanations about why this might happen, or that there was concern the dog was attacked, but those are really excuses. At this point, the dog is who the dog is, and however it happened, the dog has attacked a number of other pets, of people, and our obligation as a town is to do something to make sure that doesn't happen again. And as Paul put it, really, you Braden, and your dad, to the extent he's helping you, you have the ability to save that dog by how what you can do. If you're capable of doing it and doing it with Mr. McSorley's help, I would like to give you the opportunity to do that, but I really don't think that excuses and defensiveness are going to be helpful. I think it's got to be a real commitment, and I heard Mr. McSorley say the same thing. So I gather by the fact that you're here that you want us to try to let you save the dog, so I'd like to give you the opportunity to do that, but I also need to make sure, as others have set up here, that the town is safe and that people's pets are safe.
The first thing we have to decide is whether the dog is a dangerous dog, a nuisance dog, or that the complaint should be dismissed.
Right.
So I'd like to make a motion based on all the evidence that I heard here today.
Yep.
To find the dog Blitz to be a dangerous dog.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion of that finding? Okay, all in favor of making that finding? Okay.
And then Selectman Yan had put together,
This is Sergeant Ted Stone's list of,
but you had circled some items. So if you want to present this.
yeah, During the 6-week period, I'm inclined to have Blitz confined to the premises. This is quite a long, intense training session. The alternative is, when he's off-site, he has to be on I think you described it as a 3-foot, 300-pound leash. But I think the dog needs to be restrained when it's not on property, not at 187 Maple Street. The piece that troubles me is that there have been 4 attacks. A couple of them have resulted in about $20,000 worth of vet costs. Apparently there's insurance available. If the dog causes injury, the dog owner should be responsible for it. And I would be in favor of having a requirement that there be insurance up to at least $50,000, maybe $100,000, because there's already been $20,000 in cost incurred to treat two of these 4 dogs.
I would add to it, if I could make a friendly amendment,
Please.
that this 6-week program be made mandatory.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That is, I don't want to hear that we're going to do this, and then 2 days later, it turns out, well, something else came up, I decided not to do it. That should be a mandatory requirement.
So Chuck, your proposal is during the 6 weeks, the dog be confined to the premises or on a leash, a 3-foot lead?
Right, when it's off premises. And I don't have a firmly held opinion one way or the other.
I mean, I would suggest that this dog never be off the leash.
That's what I was going to say, too. That
For the
this
rest of
seems
its
like it
life.
should be a leash dog. Because
This is a
everything that's
100-pound
everything that's
German
happened
Shepherd.
has been when it's escaped or
In the house or
it's not been
when it's
controlled.
outside the house?
It's outside the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would certainly support that.
Are we continuing this hearing?
No,
I think we would have to continue the hearing in order to make sure the 6
We
weeks
want to
is
hear
a
back
success,
from
right?
them in 6 weeks, do we not?
well, I think we ought to issue an order today
With a,
with all these requirements. So I think Chuck made a motion, I want to second it. I think we should vote this. And we can add an additional element, which is that in 6 weeks or sooner, if the program is terminated, it comes back here for further action.
okay, so the conditions would be complete Mr. McSorley's 6-week recommended program.
Yes.
During that 6 weeks, the dog's confined to the premises, to the owner's property, and even after the 6 weeks, if it's successful, there's an insurance requirement, and the dog's always confined to a leash. Is that right?
Yep.
Chuck is accepting Ted Stone's recommended 1, 2.
I know, but we're trying to distinguish here, Paul, between what's a permanent restriction and what's during the 6 weeks, and I think that was what we were just talking about. So those 1, 2, 3A, those are all.
1, 2A, 2C, and
See, I
3.
wouldn't go for 2C because it talks about a muzzle, and I think I heard Mr. McSorley say that that's actually counterproductive to have a muzzle. So if others are willing to not have the
I
dog.
also have another question for Mr. McSorley.
Yeah.
If I might.
Yeah, if you could.
Mr. McSorley, are you going to be able to conduct this 6-week training without taking the dog off the premises?
I would bring them off the premises at some point.
So in the company of Mr. McSorley, then?
Yeah, I mean, I think because to socialize a dog, you need to
Yeah.
take it off the premises.
Good.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
John?
yeah. That makes-
He's gonna have to learn to live in the real world.
Right.
Can't keep him in a vacuum.
Okay. All right, so that's what, sounds like we have, a motion to.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, from what I heard, I have little confidence at this point that you're going to follow through on this, and more importantly, once it's done, continue to behave in a way. So I'd really like to see you prove me wrong.
Okay. All right, so do we have a motion to, just to summarize what, I'll summarize it, somebody can make the motion, which is that the dog be allowed to train, or be required to train with Mr. McSorley for the 6-week period with, I guess, with the owner and the owner's father, who said they would both participate. That during that 6 weeks, the dog would be confined to the premises except when in the company of Mr. McSorley. And if the 6-week training is a success, then even so, for the rest of the dog's life, the owner's going to have to carry insurance in an amount of, you said $50,000, Chuck? Is that what you said?
Well, Officer Tedstone has suggested 100,000. I'm
At least 50,000?
at least 50,000, I think.
Okay, and that the dog would be on a leash at all times if off the property? Okay.
Except in the presence of,
Well, during the 6 weeks, except in the presence of Mr. McSorley, but after that, if he wants to take him to the park or someplace, it's on the leash. So he's under control.
Yep.
Okay. Does that sound good? Does anybody want to make that motion and second it?
it was Chuck's motion.
So move.
Second?
Okay, all in favor of that? Okay, great, I can write that order up if you want.
And kudos to Sergeant Tedstone.
Thank
This
you,
is
Sergeant Tedstone, a very complete,
very
thorough report.
thorough, and the recommendations were very helpful.
And this is
Thank
never,
you.
I mean, there's nothing fun or good about any of this, but I appreciate everybody's cooperation and honesty in making this, getting everybody through it. Thank you.
Let me close that hearing.
Yeah, well, somebody want to move to close the proceeding?
Well, there was that one other element, that after the 6 weeks, have them come back here.
Okay, so you want to add that? All right, all in favor of that? After 6 weeks, they come back? Okay, great.
Good luck with this.
Yeah, and that coming back would be just a report back, basically. Okay. Okay, great, thanks. So the next item is an update on library construction. I'm sorry we're so far behind on that, but I appreciate that Mary and others came in for this.
Oh, sorry about that.
Is it not open?
Thanks, Paul, for that, kind of leading that last one.
This wasn't easy.
No. Thanks.
We got this in color.
Yeah, black and white.
We have it here somewhere.
Thank you.
Hey, Roger. Good job, Chuck.
No, you did a good job, man.
We good?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for coming
good.
in.
Hi, my name is Jim Kolb. I'm chairman of the Library Building Committee. I'm here tonight to talk about the library, obviously, but also more specifically about some of the safety and access concerns that Chief Thompson and others have brought up regarding the contractor's activities adjacent to the site and in close proximity to the police station. Most notably, this revolves around the use and taking of certain spaces at certain limited times, impeding access from Town Hall to the police department. There have been one incident where there were materials and also a contractor vehicle parked in that area, and that is certainly not what is expected of this contractor, and it's certainly not what is in the contract that the town of Sherborn has signed with the contractor, Five Star. So I just want to brief people that we on the building committee, as well as the OPM Design Technique, are very attuned to this with regards to what transpired and the chief's email last Monday. We did talk to the contractor, and he did respond to restore the access to the site. We've also placed plates over the trenching, which was also not done properly. The contractor has been notified. I actually talked to the president of Five Star this morning. I've communicated with the project manager. I've communicated with the VP of Project Management and made it very clear that the town of Sherborn is not going to tolerate this kind of activity, and that they need to be proactive in their communication. They need to do what they know. They've done plenty of projects that they know is the right thing to do with regards to safety for not only the folks that are going to the police department and the town hall, but also all the residents in the town. And they've assured me, as recently as this morning on the phone, that they will do that. We meet regularly. We are meeting with the library trustees next Tuesday night at 7:30, and the head of project management for Five Star will be in attendance at that meeting. I've also encouraged the president of Five Star to come to several job meetings in the near future and also walk the site to fully understand the close proximity of the library and some of the exterior work around the site as it relates to the police department and access and, more importantly, safety for everyone that's involved. In my conversations with him today, he did know, and I'll give him this, he did know a lot about the project, which sometimes isn't always the case, but he had a lot of details on the project, which means to me he is tuned in. But again, I made it clear that we are not happy with this component of the project to date, and we are on top of it.
How often is the owner's project rep on site?
The owner's project rep is approximately 50%, so thank you for reminding me. There's one point that I neglected to bring up. We have asked for a proposal from them for additional site coverage for this reason, and just for supervisory purposes as well.
But even if they're on the site for 50%, wouldn't you think they should pick up on some of these issues, like the open trench the chief complained about, the open, the disruption of the parking lot? Were you out there? Did you go back there tonight?
I did.
It's still excavated. There's still no plate across. If somebody were to try to walk, an elderly person who was unstable or something, to try to walk back there, there could be some serious repercussions. That's something I would think the contractor, particularly after you've warned them, would have been all over. And it amazes me that they're not.
Yeah, I mean, it is, it's unfortunate. I'm not going to say that it's not amazing.
It's more than unfortunate. I think it's neglectful.
The OPM, who the town has hired to represent our interest, is responsible ultimately for some of that. We are also responsible as a building committee, but it's also our responsibility to ride the OPM to make sure he's fulfilling his obligations as well.
I know, but you're saying that, but it didn't happen. And I mean, and you were on notice and were warned, and we asked you to come in here tonight, and it's still not right. And how did the project manager not see that and act on it? I mean, they're working for the town, we're paying them, and I think it's negligent not to have those things taken care of. And if it's their job, you need to tell them they have to actually do the job.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Your memo makes reference to an email from Chief Thompson. It was dated Monday, July 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And our audience and the people watching this, no one's explained what Chief Thompson's email was all about. So could someone enlighten the community? What was brought to your attention on July 10th?
In summary, and I'm sure the chief can chime in if he cares to, in summary, was some of the things that I talked about. One was the covering and the plates that were just brought up by Michael. The other were blocking access from Town Hall to the police department. There was a construction vehicle parked in one of the spaces at one point too. There was somebody that needed some medical attention. Fortunately, as the chief noted, it wasn't life-threatening, but without that unimpeded access, that could be a problem. So that was noted, as well as some residents that one of the folks in the police department were helping with a car seat in a car and such, and it was not that easy to help these residents out. So that's kind of the highlight of some of the things that the chief noted. In addition, probably the other thing that he did noted, and it was correctly observed, is that I would call it the parking area that is adjacent, which everyone knows where that is, adjacent to the parking lot on Town Hall, is being used more as a staging area for materials and such rather than parking. So that is also correct. And so that is not what we have agreed to with the contractor, and that has been part of the conversation with the contractor as recently as this morning.
Thank you.
Chief, you want to add anything, or?
Yep.
And thank you.
So first of all, I just want to make the board aware that my concerns are certainly not an indictment of the library committee or any of the members. I've spoken with Mary a few times about some of the issues, and she's been very receptive. The issue I've had since this project has begun is my strong opinion is that the contractors treat this is like a pro forma process, that they're just going to go do what they want to do regardless of what I have to say or what my personnel have had to say, or frankly some of the town hall employees. When I came home from vacation on Saturday, just to surmise what I put in writing, when I came through the back lot, the first thing that I noticed was a pallet of wallboard that was blocking a few parking spots that are usually utilized by COA employees and our elder residents that visit the COA at Town Hall. I couldn't understand why that was there on a Saturday morning, particularly considering this has become nothing more than a supply depot to the side of the town hall, the south end of the town hall. As I approached the police department, I noticed the open trench between town hall and the police department, and I noticed some orange nylon fencing and a few pieces of heavy equipment that were quasi-blocking the trench. That's not acceptable to me, and I'm pretty certain that if OSHA came out and took a peek at that, they'd have a few things to say. Additionally, not that I would say that you were minimizing my observation of the extremely pregnant resident that was literally walking over several inches of sand and dirt and debris in the parking lot in front of the police department. That was extremely concerning to me because I certainly don't want to see any one of our residents fall and become injured. I also observed PVC conduit that was laid across one of two handicap spots that we have in front of the police department, which is unacceptable. And as I put in my email to David and Mike, it was kind of irrelevant anyway because you couldn't even get a vehicle to those parking spots. So the entire front of the police department was shut down. On Saturday, then as I spoke with my personnel on Saturday, I was told that the access point between Town Hall and the police department was closed for 2 days. I made it very clear when I met with the representatives from 5 Star that will never happen. And frankly, I made it very clear to the representatives of 5 Star, my biggest concern was for public safety. And sadly, my officers were forced to drive down the back lot, go around and come up to Town Hall to assist a town employee who was having a medical emergency. Not acceptable to me. In addition to that, my Lieutenant Bento and Sergeant Tenson on Monday and Tuesday of this week have had conversations with the contractors on Sanger Street. I brought to the contractors' attention when we had these pre-construction meetings that if they were planning on bringing out heavy equipment to Sanger Street, that there was a concern to the residents. We went through this. We shut down Sanger Street. Plenty of residents were upset by being impeded. I was assured that they were not going to bring any heavy equipment onto Sanger Street and that they would not impede traffic. On Monday, Sergeant Ted Stone had a conversation with one of the contractors who decided to jump out in the middle of Sanger Street and stop traffic. Has zero authority to do that, to guide a construction vehicle out there. On Tuesday, Lieutenant Bento was doing an inspection of a construction vehicle not related to the library project. And not only do they have one construction vehicle coming out the bottom of Sanger Street, they had a second construction vehicle at the top of Sanger Street. So literally the entire length of Sanger Street had been shut down. That's not acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable to the town. It's certainly not acceptable to me. So having said all that, it's nice to hear after the fact that, you know, the contractors are gonna work with us, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. For me, it's a broken record, and I think that the board should, you know, through the library committee, be a lot more forceful with the demands on behalf of the town.
Thank you, Chief.
Can I just then go full circle and say, has this problem been addressed, and is it being addressed? And I know you've said all these things.
Right.
The
Well, clearly it has
point I
not
think
been
you were
fully
make-
addressed, as Michael pointed out. So we will need to have another conversation with them tomorrow. And I will encourage the OPM to be a little more proactive, in addition to my calling the contractor personally.
Yeah, I want to echo what the chief said, which is this is not really about your committee. You're doing what you can do. You're volunteers. You've got a big project to run, but you know the town, you and the town hired a project manager for the owner, and the OPM as you're calling them. And I can't see why they're not, as you put it, being more proactive. I think that would probably go a long way to resolving this, and if the chief or somebody else had an issue, they'd have a point person who could take care of it right away, hopefully.
Yeah, to echo what Mike said, I'm not sure you need more on-site coverage by the OPM. You need better. If they're on-site 50% of the time, they should be accessible and aware that it has or hasn't been done, so.
Nancy?
I'm not sure that it's clear the way this was explained, that this is not just access to the town hall. This is access to the public. There is no way to get to the police station. We had a few panic-stricken people coming into town hall and saying, how do we get there? Well, I didn't realize that it was shut down. I walked out with someone to show them how to get there, and there was no way. This woman was going to climb down the bridge and go to the other side, and I said, no, you can't do that. So she left to go around to see how she could get in, and there was a call made, and they said, have people come up the wrong way, but be very careful. But the other thing is, shortly after that, the water went off, and we were told that the water was going to go off in town hall. So that was it was a busy day.
Wow.
But it's being addressed. We have an excellent building committee. You've heard all these things, and I heard a commitment that all this stuff is going to be fixed, worked on, taken care of. So
Yeah, I'm not going to defend the contractor by any means, but we do have a great committee. I think 50% of us are in the business ourselves, so we know what should happen. We have Rogers here tonight, and several others go to the job meetings regularly, so we're all committed to this, to follow through and make sure that they get their act together.
Yeah, thanks. I think, and I appreciate you coming in, and my thought was it would be helpful to just air this publicly so that, stories don't get around, and so that everybody can see the level of commitment you have to making sure this gets corrected, so thank you.
Okay, no problem.
So can I just ask a question?
sorry, Mark,
How often do you meet? The
The
building committee?
library building committee,
Yeah.
right now we meet once a month.
Once a month.
And we have considered most recently at the last building committee to meet more regularly if there are things going on. However, we do have town meeting notifications and such, so we're trying to figure out how to get together and communicate without, having it be a town meeting. Town is certainly welcome to all these meetings, but we do need to address some of the things on a more urgent basis than once a month.
So, hang on one second. So, I mean, because it sounds like, we got some communication. Who's attending from town hall or police or?
At
are you
the
going
job
to these
meetings?
Meetings?
I've been to a
David?
couple, Diane's been to a couple, Diane went this week.
I mean, it sounds like we should be at every one of them.
Well,
There's a weekly town.
There is a weekly project meeting.
I was just there Tuesday.
1:30
Yep.
Tuesday.
And so do these things get discussed there?
They do.
This
Sorry.
issue, this most recent issue, Mark, was discussed,
It was.
Diane brought it to their attention too, so.
Yeah, I mean, because in my experience, a weekly meeting with everybody involved tends to extinguish 90% of these problems. So I would just, invite yourself to these meetings and we gotta
We've
make sure we're
also-
there all the time.
We've also urged the contractor to do a week look ahead. You know, they usually do 2-week look aheads. A week look ahead, what activities might be going on that might come into play with regards to the access and some of the things that the chief noted, and to communicate those proactively to the chief and others, to make sure everyone's aware of it, get their input. And if the contractor needs to modify his approach, he needs to modify his approach to accommodate the ongoing operation. So
But again, you're volunteers, so I think we need the employees of the town to also be coming to these meetings and making sure that this is all being taken care of at the lowest levels possible. I mean, I don't think we need to be, having televised,
Well, I think why it went rampant.
discussions of this kind of stuff.
Why it got out of hand, last week we had the normal meetings on Tuesday afternoon. There was a holiday, and we had a lot of people coming in and out. You were out of town, I was out of town half the week. Diane was out a couple of days, so there was some things that would have been caught a lot sooner in a normal week.
I was gonna suggest exactly what Mark was saying. It's true, you get volunteer residents that are sitting on the building committee, and I don't think it's fair to them to have them attend these weekly meetings. So I was gonna suggest that I could have Lieutenant Bento or Sergeant Ted Stone act as a liaison on behalf of the town to, for those weekly meetings specific to safety issues, if you'd like.
Yeah, because I'm going to pick on just a little bit, because you said, the town should take the library and be forceful with it, but the library is the town. And,
I don't understand that one, but.
it's right over there, it's part of our community, and, we've
Right, so is the
we've all got to
town hall
work
and
together
so
on
is the
this.
police department.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to get too defensive for the library, Mark. They kindly came in here to talk this through, and I think I disagree with it. I think it is important to hear these issues, particularly where they've reached so many people and had, multiple issues in 1 week that people were concerned about. This is a good way to, I think it's helpful to suggest that town employees come to these meetings, and maybe, this kind of discussion
Yeah,
will
it's
make
the
things a little
biggest
better.
project we've done.
It's the
I
biggest
think
project we've done.
we can't over-communicate here.
Yeah, I agree with just over-communication. I think when Chief Thompson reached out on Monday, I mean, unless we were at the police station for some reason, we wouldn't have known it. So I think anybody who's got eyes on the ground, if there's an issue, we're all committed to the success of the project. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone, send an email. If there's a concern, we'll try to get to the OPM and get to the general contractor right away, because that's the goal.
But the
What's your home number, Mary?
I still go back to what Chuck and I said.
What's your home phone number?
I mean, the OPM should know, and I bet does know, the level of concern town hall occupants and this board has had about making sure that the operations, and I put in my email to you today, the operations of the police station and town hall are as little as possible impacted by that project. And we talked about it even during the planning stage, the importance of leaving access back and forth. So that really is on the project manager. They know that that's one of the objectives. They've got a lot of objectives. They got to bring a big project in, but that's part of it too.
I agree, and I think to Jim's point, the trustees and the library building committee, our job is to manage those people that we've contracted to get this project done, and make sure that if they're not delivering a quality product, that we let them know. And
Yeah, maybe another reminder on that would be helpful.
Well, just in defense of what's going on a little bit, I've been through pretty much all the town building projects going back many years. There always are problems.
Of course.
There always are going to be issues. You can't undertake any kind of construction project. Now you got one that's, as Marcus said, is the biggest one. But even on the small ones, you have all kinds of things, and you have things that get misunderstood and things that get done wrong. That's part of a project. And I think the idea of good communications, good responsiveness, that's how you fix those things. That's how you make them go forward.
No? Not wading into this one? Okay. All right, good, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sharon, you are up.
All right. The good news is it's not going to take a half an hour.
Okay.
Oh.
That's
hope.
good. We'll get almost back on
We'll see
track.
about
We're going to hold you to that.
Oh, no. Okay. All right, so the first thing is consideration of reserve fund transfers for FY '17. And we met with the advisory committee last night and reviewed everything as well. At this point, we have only 2 reserve fund transfers that we're going to be submitting for signature tonight. And they both are related to audits by Melanson Heath. One is for the library project, which is obviously a very large project. And I've been working really closely with the library committee and also with Elizabeth and supplying biweekly reports to the auditors so that to ensure that, we're doing everything properly and, when it comes to the Massachusetts funding that we're receiving, that everything will go smoothly. So we have contracted with Melanson Heath, and they will be doing a full audit. At this point, they've just been reviewing documentation, but they should be coming in shortly. I'm waiting to hear from Zach. So that's, in total, that audit could be anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000. For this year, we're just accruing $3,000. The remainder of it is in next year's budget. And the paperwork, you submitted the paperwork to everyone, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other.
So you haven't received any reports from them yet?
No.
This will be the first one?
This will be the first one, yeah. I've been submitting things to them, and that we did meet with them at first. And one of their suggestions was to have a separate warrant for all library building projects, so that everything is contained in one, concise place. And it's made it really great, and Elizabeth has been, working with me, reconciling it every other week, so it's going well. And then the other audit is the Pine Hill School Activity Fund, and we are not that's started. We're not finished yet. That's going to be $3,500, and that is a requirement. Any activity fund that exceeds $25,000 a year in expenses needs to be audited by an independent auditor. And then every 3 years that needs to be audited to ensure that all the proper controls are in place. And they have made a few suggestions so far, but the audit's not complete.
I feel like I asked this another time, maybe a year or two ago, but is it our budget that pays for the school audit, or does it come out of the school budget?
The region has an audit that they pay for that would come out of the assessment. Pine Hill would be built into our audit if they wanted to review anything.
So it's not something that comes out of the Sherborn school budget or the school committee budget?
The school audit?
The activity fund audit?
This is the
that's coming out of
Pine Hill
ours.
School, so it comes out of ours.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
How big is that activity fund?
It's $3,500, Chuck.
Is the cost?
That's also the fund.
This year, we spent.
Thank you, that's my question.
And now that I know, this year we spent $25,436.
Why are we paying 1/8 of that to audit it?
Right.
It only has to be audited every 3 years. Well, there were a lot of issues.
It's only over 25,000? So why don't we just cap at $24,999 and?
And save $3,500.
We can. It's not every year, but there were some major issues, not here, but in other communities where it was being really not managed well at all and a lot of abuse, so that's why it came to be.
So this is already in progress, right?
Yes, it is. And it was part of our management letter, it was a management letter comment stating that we should have that done because it's a requirement.
Sounds like the next time we just keep it at $25,000 so we don't have to do it again. That seems like a waste.
Okay,
Yep, amen.
all right,
Yeah.
okay. So, and those are the only 2 that we're talking about
Do we have to
tonight.
sign something about this? Is that what-
Yes, you have the paperwork?
he's got it right in front
Okay,
of
you've
you.
got it right in
I
front of
got
you.
this, but do we have to take a vote on this? Is that what it is?
You have to approve the reserve fund
To
transfer. Yeah.
approve a reserve fund transfer.
And advisory is waiting to hear from us, or they already voted this?
They met last night, right?
They met last evening,
Steve,
and
thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up, okay. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the $6,500 reserve fund transfer?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, you could be right.
Okay.
No?
There's no money, there's no money there either.
All right, so the next.
We didn't really vote that yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
My apologies.
You guys okay with this?
Yes.
All right. All right, all in favor of, okay, it's great.
Okay, the next item is budget transfers for FY17, and this was an interesting new thing for me to learn about. So based on Massachusetts general law, 44, section 33B, at the end of the fiscal year, you have until July 15th to do budget transfers. And this year, because of the the Municipal Modernization Act, it's not as stringent as it was in the past. So, but still, we have to vote on this by July 15th. The Board of Selectmen has to approve it. So I sent out a analysis that I did that shows all of the budgets by department that were approved last year at the town hall annual town meeting, and it has all the adjustments that were made for articles and things like that. And I compared that to our total expenses this year. And this year we did we had a warrant that closed actually yesterday, warrant 28, and that really, I think, made a big difference because our encumbrances are very low. Which makes it a lot easier to manage. And all the department heads are really, really good in getting everything to me, so I feel confident that we've captured everything.
That's the last warrant of last year.
Yes.
So Sharon, I'm looking at this sheet,
Mhm.
the reserve fund transfer sheet, and I had a couple of questions about this. One was, we did a transfer, I think we did a couple transfers for legal, including the one at, looks like March 30, we did a $77,000. I remember at the time, there was a thought that we were gonna still need to do another one by the year end. Did that not happen? We didn't have to do that? We budgeted it for the last 3 months, or what?
I didn't account for it through a reserve fund transfer. It was about $10,000
But you found a
that
way
we
to
were
pay
short.
it out of another
Yes,
fund?
that's
Okay.
part of this,
It's in here.
it's part of the, you'll see under town council, actually, if you look at items to be funded through budget transfers, on the first page,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
highlighted in yellow. So it was $10,190 that we went over.
Okay, so we can fund it from the.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what you were hoping to be able to do.
Yes, so-
And then the other question I had was the accountant budget, 72,093, is that the bookkeeping package, or what is that? How do we get that out
was
of whack on
the,
that budget?
that was Suzanne, the consultant that we had for the whole year, and that was extraordinary costs that weren't budgeted for.
Okay, and that was really just the transition from the last.
Yes, she
finance
has
director?
not been involved since, I think, May, end of May, middle of
So,
May.
David, she was earning that much more than the finance director had been?
No, I don't think that's fair to say that that was all her salary. We would have to go get the breakout of,
Like,
It's just a big number.
but that's the departmental amount.
Yeah.
For how long, though? It doesn't
It
sound like you were
was-
for that long.
She was,
I mean, for that long?
she was here for over a year. She started last May.
Okay.
It was, if you remember, there was a lot more work to get that audit done.
Oh, I remember.
from the last-
Yeah.
But I also thought she was only coming in a day a week or a couple of days a week.
No, we weren't able to ramp her down as quickly as we thought. We were hoping to ramp her down in January to like 1 day a week. Then
And
we
she was still
needed her.
cleaning up that last year's audit?
Yeah, and then we needed her help with the prep for the switch to the Vadar too.
All right, but that's all behind us now?
It's all, yeah.
Okay.
You're gonna use her a little bit for the
I
closing?
may use her just a little bit, though, for year end, just to, walk me through some.
Additional audit fees in here? As part of the 72?
No.
Norfolk Agricultural, really,
We did not,
92,000?
we didn't, yeah, and I actually did reach out to Frank Byron and Zach,
Wow.
and we were allowed to transfer that.
And what is that?
It's Norfolk Aggie.
Norfolk Aggie, we had
No,
no.
I know what it is, but
Oh.
where's the money from?
I don't
Oh,
remember budgeting that
I don't
much.
think
yeah, we budgeted for it last year. We didn't budget for it in FY '18, but yeah, you budgeted,
To that
you
extent?
did.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Be 3 kids, wouldn't it?
No, I think, yeah, maybe it is 3 kids.
Sounds about right.
Everybody- How many?
I believe it was three kids.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then they didn't go?
And, yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, we have 289,000 we're going to, that needs to be funded, and we found, several departments that can fund that. And as a result, the remaining balance of our reserve fund is at 70,000, which will go to free cash. And the other thing I want to point out, if you look at the spreadsheet, if you look at the last page, the last column, you'll see that there's, we have 299, what is that? No, I can't read my eyes. $239,000 in budgets that were not spent, even after all these transfers. And that will also go to free cash. So it's pretty good, very nice. People did a really good job, so. So at this point, I guess you need to vote to approve these transfers. Oops, sorry.
There's an item in here for a pending lawsuit. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
David?
Has that been resolved?
No, you're having an executive session afterwards.
Okay, so it's in what you want us to vote, though?
It's a pending item, but it's not down in the bottom.
It's not part of this, and I didn't give you anything.
Okay, so
and
I just am
Oh, it
leery
says
of
pending.
leery of
It's-
voting
it's
something
pending
before.
here.
It's in the
before
top
it's
half,
settled.
but it's not in the
Yeah,
bottom half.
Okay.
Yeah.
all
I was going to
Sorry.
get some documentation, but David said you were going to handle it in a different way, so.
Good, okay, thanks, that's good.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't, cutting our legs out from under ourselves or something here.
You don't want to count the $3 billion several times?
Yeah, the 3 billion, that's what it is. Okay. So what do we need to do, Sharon?
You just need to vote to approve it.
Second.
Okay, moved in second, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right, so that's $289,000 of budget transfers from positive variances to overages.
Yes.
Great. Do I have to sign something on that? Do we
Yeah,
need
if
to
you could
sign?
just sign that, that would be great.
What do I sign? Just this thing?
Just sign that.
Okay.
Of course, that means you're paying it personally.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
very
what-
much for your
That's what I
generosity.
thought. What check number is this?
Just put a check in front of them.
Okay. Excuse me, I need to keep.
Okay.
And I did send this to everybody by email as well last night. Let's see, as far as encumbrances go, like I mentioned earlier, they're.
Oh, wait, before we leave
Okay,
that,
sure.
because that's transfers to town council, I should have abstained on
Oh,
those pieces of it. So could I, but I wanted to vote on everything else.
So you're abstaining from paying a bill that we've already got? We're not selecting a town council with that, we're just paying a bill. I'm not sure.
It's probably technically, I should,
All right, you want to just put -1 next to the one that says town council, so we know Paul didn't vote for it?
okay, sure.
What are we doing next here?
Just to be clear, you're not voting against it, you're simply
Oh, no.
recusing yourself.
That's what, yeah.
Yes, okay,
these lawyers should get paid.
okay.
Wonder why?
Take it, Bruce.
Doesn't seem,
Not because you're sitting
He's-
there.
doesn't seem to be a problem.
Mr. Chair, can we debate that issue?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sharon, what else have you got here? You got
Okay, I
Harper's
just
Tax
wanted to
Service?
bring to your attention that, yeah, we're going through the Vadar migration. We're taking a look at everything we do and seeing if we can improve processes. And in dealing with the consultants from Vadar, they were saying, there's no way you guys should be putting yourself at risk and managing your own tax, paying your taxes. So we outsource, so Harper's, who is our payroll provider, is going to handle that for us. And the cost is $300 a year. In a letter that I gave to all of you, I did cite that, that I talked to our auditors, and they said that I should definitely bring it to your attention. And they said that I should really kind of dive in, do a cost benefit. And I presented this to advisory last night as well. And you'll see that, we could have avoided a penalty of $2,000. So it's well worth the $300.
And is this going to free up some time of somebody internally also?
It will.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, it will. Yes, definitely. So.
Quarterly report.
The quarterly report too, they'll take complete responsibility for that. Boom. So it's a good
Over
move.
$300 a year?
Yes, yes.
And 25
I have
a
all the
month.
data, it's just cranking out the report.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's better than us.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's really, it's well worth it. And it's interesting because when I talked with Harper's, they said, oh, that's right, you're probably one of our last customers to do this. So it's a good move. And then,
Any approval on that?
Oh,
You need a vote?
yes.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Sharon.
And then the last thing I just wanted to bring to your attention, and again, this was in your packet, we had an insurance, well, where's my notes on this? We had an insurance reimbursement for a vehicle that was destroyed by a fire back in 2017, I believe. No, it was before that, actually. Yeah, 15. And those funds were sitting in an account, and, we're going through cleanup and looking at all the different accounts. So I reached out to the auditors on that as well, and they said that, what we can do is transfer that to the general fund. It will be something that we can close out to free cash at the end of the year, which is going to help our financial situation. And they said that I should bring it to your attention for a vote.
The end of which year? The end of 18?
For FY17, yep.
So is that on top of the other? We should have an article every year. The other
Mhm.
reserve?
Yeah, so it's a good thing, so. The reason why they didn't end up replacing that truck is because there were other ATM warrant articles that were used, and it just kind of, so we don't need that, though, to buy another truck, and we can just transfer that over.
Okay. Steve, you had a,
I did, but he wasn't speaking on it back in the day. So on that, so we got paid the insurance money on it, but ended up, with different warrants and articles that were passed out town meeting, we ended up buying vehicles anyways. So anyway, the money sat there for a couple of years. We didn't take the insurance money that was spent. I'm actually asking a question, I'm stating a fact. So the money that we got paid back for this current vehicle didn't get used to buy another vehicle. It kind of sat in the corner, right? But then the town recognized we need another vehicle, so we passed a warrant at, I think, last year's meeting to buy the vehicle.
I think that's
So
right.
in a way, it got overlooked, right? At this point, we're kind of catching up on it.
Yeah.
Right?
It should just go against, it should reduce the borrowing for the next one, right? Or that's what it should have done in the first place, correct?
Correct.
Where are you proposing to transfer it to?
It's going to just go to the general fund, and we're going to close it out, and it's going to impact our free cash.
Can have another free cash spree next year.
We're burning up another vehicle.
So,
Okay, so motion to approve that?
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor? Thanks, Sharon.
okay, and that's it.
Great work, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your first night as the official
I
town
know.
accountant, so that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Let's see. What's next?
Number 6.
6, consideration of town council contract.
So Paul, you want to make yourself scarce, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And he's the only one who says that lawyers should get paid up here, so I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you lost your most reliable vote there.
All right.
Probably. That way the people can.
Just gonna grab a quick.
Yeah, sure. I think they're getting water. Something.
If one more of us leaves, we don't even have four.
We've seen that trick before.
Thanks for coming. Wouldn't be that much fun because you get to still send them.
I'm sorry, on the agenda, but what's next on the agenda, if I may ask?
Contract renewal.
They're gonna do a puppet show, but we're just watching. All right, so we got everybody here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, do you want to,
That's the contract.
David? You want to just give us the background on this?
Annually, the Board of Selectmen need to appoint town council. Every now and then, we go out to the market and try to find what's adequate rates. With Barbara St. Andre and K&P, these are very reasonable rates compared to some other municipalities in the area, what they are paying. So Barbara is here, and Darren Klein, who handles a lot of the HR issues. And the only conflict I had, question I had, Barbara, was that the current year that just ended, was that at 185 per hour?
No, actually, it's at 190.
190 it was? Okay.
Okay, so
The-
in your
the pro-
letter where you talk about 185, that was previously?
Yeah, so, if I could, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, please.
So, first of all, thank you for having us here for the annual event. It's good to see you all. So what happened, Mr. Chairman, is that, as you may recall, in January of 2016, I switched law firms, and the board was kind enough to appoint my new firm as town council. At that time, the hourly rate for my former firm was $195 an hour. We agreed to drop it to $185 an hour as part of the move to come here. So in July of last year, the board agreed to increase it to $190. So for the past fiscal year was at $190. So what we're asking is to put it up to $195, which is the rate that we were at back, well, not that we were at, but that town council was at in January
So you're
2016.
basically requesting a $5
Right,
raise
exactly.
for this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, yes.
Yep, yep. Okay.
And an
that-
increase in the retainer from 65,000 to 72.5 is the other change?
Yes, I don't think we've had an increase in the retainer for a few years.
Yeah, and I mean, given our burn rate last year, that's not even a big number. I mean, it's, hopefully, we're not gonna have to do as much this year, but who knows?
Well, you know, it varies from year to year, and last year was a busy year, and seems every year is a busy year, but, you know, we're happy to do a retainer
We're not
to help
expecting
out
any
the town.
litigation, and we're not gonna have
No,
any
oh,
labor
no.
trouble this year, so.
No, everybody will be well behaved.
Okay.
Best laid plans.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And no 40Bs either.
Right. So any, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I mean, this is, you know, we perennially overspend our budget for legal. And now that you've been at your new firm for a while and had a chance to get to know Darren, do you have any suggestions on how we could reduce our legal expenditures? Not necessarily the price, but the usage?
So I think legal budgets are sometimes unpredictable.
It's a great question.
I think what has happened is, like many towns in the last couple of years, you've been hit by a lot of these Chapter 40Bs. It's not just this town. I can tell you, we have been deluged with 40B projects in all sorts of cities and towns across the Commonwealth because basically the economy has turned around, and they can be very intensive. And unfortunately, you know, there's been litigation coming out of those. So when you look at your budget over the long term, you'll see that some years it was pretty modest. because there wasn't much litigation. And then the last couple of years, unfortunately, because of the 40Bs and a couple of other things, it's been higher than usual. There's no question about it. So I'm hoping that when we go into executive session and we start talking about some of the specific cases, I do have some suggestions on how we can try to keep those costs down. But a big part of it really is prevention. And we've come out here, we've done a couple of seminars so far. We did one on public records this year. We did do a 40B seminar. I think that's actually a very good thing to do. One of my suggestions would be that we come out here and do another seminar on some other issue that perhaps, the town needs some bolstering on, so to speak. And we're happy to do that. And the other good thing is, I think with the retainer, I think, David and Diane do a good job that if somebody has a question up front, to try to ask us ahead of time, so that we can give the advice and hopefully avoid litigation. You can't always do it, and I think 40B is a good example, but it's often difficult to avoid it. But I think those are the types of things that we're trying to do.
Thanks.
Well, despite my natural instincts to always try and negotiate a fee down, I would move to approve a retainer agreement for $72,500 and an hourly billing rate of $195, effective July 1, 2017 with KP Law.
And we've never not blown through that retainer, right?
A few years ago, I think we were much closer to the actual number.
I think that our understanding is we're almost always going to go over. I don't think it's ever been under, and, that's part of the reason
Yeah,
to do it.
because, it is a 12% increase.
Yeah.
But it's actually
Yeah.
less than we've spent like the last 3 years on.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And the retainer gives us at least there's a lot of stuff they can do within the retainer that we'd rather not pay them on an hourly basis for, so.
Second?
Okay. And I just wanted to say, as somebody who tends to be the one who deals with you on legal stuff when it's not David, I've been very pleased with the work that you've done, and also just with the responsiveness and your willingness to give us actual advice and not just ask us what we want to do, which has sometimes in the past been an issue with other council. And I know you've been helpful with sort of individual conflict issues and other things that different board members here and in other boards in town have had. And so thank you.
Very well.
Thanks for the
Thank
good
you.
service.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, all in
Agree.
favor? Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. You're sticking around, both of you, or?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I know, I saw that too. Hey, Rick, just a question for you, Rick, on the TV. Why does it say Sherborn Board of Health, June 21st, underneath our meeting? I was afraid you'd have pointed me to the Board of Health.
We still want an open meeting law violation.
What's that?
We don't want an open meeting law violation.
That's the wrong meeting.
All right, so the next agenda item is the CMD Director discussion. Sean, can you send Paul back in? Would you mind? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's a really good summary of the assessment center that David prepared for us. Do we want to take a break so everyone has a chance to read it before?
Have people not read it?
I just got it.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it because
Can we take a quick break or read it at our seats?
yeah, I think it's a 5-minute break. It's not,
Okay.
it's a really good summary.
Okay, so Rick, we're gonna take a 5-minute break so that people can read some material that just came in.
Get a copy?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're back. The agenda item is the CM&D Director consideration. David, do you want to give us an update, please, on the process and where things stand now?
Well, the The last time the board met, they sent 2 people to attend an assessment center, which is basically an assessment of skills and knowledge in certain areas that are relevant to the position. There was a request to involve a local resident who also serves as the Public Works Director in a neighboring town. He was not able to participate, but we did find a Public Works Director from a different town with 30 years' experience to help us out. So I don't know how much in detail you want me to go into, but we held the event at the Heritage on Tuesday, and Mr. Colleen and Mr. Johnson were both in attendance at separate times. The panelists had 3 people asking questions that had to do with finance, budget, contract and bidding, and public works technical questions. Observing the process and not participating in the questioning was Selectman Yan and myself. The panelists went through each asking 3 questions or 3 scenarios and following up with other questions and discussions with the finalists. And they were encouraged to ask questions to the point that they could seeing whatever the skills that they were trying to assess. After all questions had been asked, the finalist was dismissed, and the panelists discussed each question and came up with a group rating for each question, and that's put forth in the packet. There's also a summary page of the end results with the scores, and then there's there's an explanation of the whole process that I followed in here, and the results are on the assessment center results is basically a ranking of the candidates or the ranking of the finalists. So there's a ranking in here, and with comments of each participant or each finalist, and then there's a proposed or recommended motion that the selectmen can consider.
Can I ask a question, counsel? Is this stuff public, or is it confidential?
It is a public document and it's being discussed in the meeting. And by rule, it has to be attached to the minutes of this meeting.
Can we make it available to people here today who are in attendance?
Yeah, I mean, it's a public document that, I mean, it's up to the board, you know, if they want to distribute it.
I asked them what they like.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. The question from Board Member Durensis through the chair is the document to which David is referring to, which I believe is a summary of the assessment center. Is it a public document? And any document that's discussed at a public meeting by rule is a public record and is attached to the minutes of this meeting.
So my request would be then to make it available to the people who are here.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. Okay. Diane, can you make a bunch of copies of this?
Sharon's gonna do that.
Sharon's gonna do that? Thanks, Sharon.
No, but how many do we have?
So while that's happening, the second question, which is that aside from the assessment center report, I know that I, as one selectman, have been the recipient of many communications from people in the town about the candidates. And I've sent those on to the town administrator. And I think that they should be part of the record of this proceeding, and perhaps also made available to everybody and anybody.
What
I don't know if everybody here got those letters, but I sent them to you so that everybody would get those letters.
I think I sent David all the same ones, probably, Paul.
Yeah. I had informed the board last week that or maybe it was earlier this week, any letters I do receive that weren't sent to the board or sent partial or certain members of the board that I ended up with, I would distribute to the whole board. Or if they were sent directly to me, I would distribute to the whole board by email. So there were, would there be
I don't know.
8 or 9?
I was only copied on one, I believe.
Yeah. So there were about 8 letters that had come in, 8 or 9.
Well, first, I want to make them part of the record here, and secondly, can we have them summarized or read for the audience so that some of those people who wrote the letters don't feel they have to get up and repeat it?
I guess I'd rather have them, instead of us reading them, I'd rather have whoever sent them, if they want to say them. I mean, I don't think there's any time to be saved by us reading
I
a
think
series of
One guy
letters.
said he couldn't be here, that's why he was writing a letter.
My responses to anyone that were sent directly to me was, thank you for your response, it'll be distributed to the whole board. That was it.
I mean, I don't think it would be bad, Paul, if you wanted to summarize the ones that you think you want the public to hear about. That's,
Well, how about we just give a list of who sent letters in, and
You could still request to add those letters to the record without admitting them in.
without reading them.
Without reading.
I mean, we should use our time efficiently.
Let me look through.
yeah, just let's identify who wrote letters.
I think most of them are in the audience.
I see 1 or 2, but there are
David Goldberg of 23 Bridle Path in support of Sean Colleen. Hesse Sheldon of 2 Ward Lane in support of Sean Colleen. Stephen Leahy in support of Sean Colleen. John Higley, 14 Saddlebrook Road, in support of Eric Johnson.
It's your pen that I think I stole from you.
Well, now that you've touched it, I'm sure it's worth much more. Can sell it
Get Aaron Carroll.
These were, I was going through the ones that I forwarded, that I know I forwarded to the whole board. So if you have, if you know the other ones that maybe you sent me or CC'd me on, yes, Aaron Carroll was one.
And she was in support of,
Sean Colleen.
so I think we're at 6. So there must be 2 more.
We already said Hesse Sheldon, correct?
Yes.
I don't see any other ones. Okay. So that was roughly 7 letters that came through?
And according to my count, there was 6 for Sean and 1 for Eric.
Yes.
And if I may, while people are reading, I would ask, did we do any reference checks?
I have them giving me 4 reference checks, so no reference checks yet. So any offer would be contingent on reference checks.
What do you mean you have them giving you 4 references?
I requested them for 4 professional references, not personal references,
Yeah, yeah.
since we all know who they are.
Yeah.
So in other words, they're picking the references. Wouldn't, what do you think about a reference check that we pick?
You talking about background check, Paul?
Yeah, some kind of background check.
Whatever you want to do. I know both candidates personally, that's why, so.
Well, we all do.
Whatever you.
But sometimes, if people get to pick for, that's not so hard to do. But if you picked up the phone and called somebody who had to deal with them, you might get a different perspective.
No, I wouldn't start blindly making calls like that unless the board wanted me to do that, and then I would probably talk to the police department about actually conducting a background check, which would be nothing that would be done in 2 weeks.
Well, are you contemplating that there would be background checks before we do a contract, or are you saying we don't need to do background checks?
If there was a selection made, I would have them fill out the town contract and the town application, answer all the questions that appear in that, and then confirm the answers on the application. Which would be, years of experience and that kind of stuff.
But no real background check?
If you want a background check, the police department will do a background check. That's the way we do it. You don't have the town administrator calling around, sneaking around, pickpocketing people.
No,
for
I'm asking, is
input.
that in the process that you've contemplated here?
I have not done a background check, and I have not ordered a background check of each one. If the board feels you need a background check of each one to make a decision, then you can order the police department to do that, basically. But it's not something that's going to be done in 2 weeks that I had to work with.
For those of you in the audience who are reading the materials, the assessment center is like halfway through towards the back of the handout, the report of the assessment center.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can we stop pussyfooting around and get on with it?
I've been doing no such thing.
Are you taking public comment?
Yeah, we can certainly take public comment. I'm just waiting. People seem to be reading things, and Paul had a few things he wanted to discuss. If the board wants public comment, now we can do public comment. So, the board wants?
Yes.
Chuck and Mark, you okay? That's great.
Sure.
So Darren, you may want to move out of the way before you get trampled. Steve. And I know Zach had actually reserved a spot, but we'll let you go first.
You don't want me first.
No.
I'm Stephen Leahy from 12 Woodland Street, and so I just saw the results of the assessment, as many of us here did as well. It's pretty clear which way the assessment leans. What I would like to do here in just a moment or two is not inform, but remind you guys of the difference between management and leadership, right? Mark, I'm sure you've seen this in your business career. Management is a distinctly separate set of skills to me than leadership. And while it looks like the outcome of the assessments leans heavily on the specific management side of things to one of the two candidates, and not the candidate that I support, leadership is something that I've seen since I've been in this town from Sean Colleen. Whether it was with building the playground project where he showed up early and stayed late every day, took his time, took his assets of his business, and put extra effort into making sure that playground for the town worked out well, very well, my kids would say. Right? Whether it's his dedication to the fire department, whether it's the fact that he is willing to spend his Wednesday nights with you guys here every other Wednesday night or so as a selectman. That, to me, shows a level of leadership. And in the CM&D department over here, even with the expanded job description you guys have added with the facilities director, or facilities management, I forget the exact term, the management of a relatively small team, such as it is over there, with relatively few pieces of equipment compared to, say, Framingham, for example, I think while the assessment, or I should say even the summary of the assessment, which is all I really had time to read, leans heavily towards candidate Johnson, I don't think that the level of complexity within Sherborn, again, even with the expanded mandate, is what should be a primary concern here. I think that there are people within the department, and I think there's people within Town Hall who are willing and able to help out with any of that. I noticed in the executive summary there was a guessed at or estimated learning curve of a couple of years there. I'd be willing to say that someone who, again, as we know, has run a small business, has dealt with payroll issues, has dealt with Massachusetts state issues, I'd be willing to bet that Sean can figure out a way to fill out the paperwork correctly as needed. But more important, I think Sean's going to lead from the front. Right? I think that he's more than capable of handling the administrative management side of things, and I think that in CM&D, which maybe didn't have the greatest leadership in the last couple of years here, I think that's someone who can lead from the front, who can make sure that the team of people he works with is happy to be there every day, willing to work hard. Maybe some of his hard effort kind of rubs off on the others. Not that they don't work extra hard now, but it'd be great to see that continue if they do. So that's my point of being up here. I get it. In seeing the assessment, I see which way it leans. But that assessment doesn't take into account the leadership, which, in truth, I haven't seen leadership from candidate Johnson because I don't know who the gentleman is. But in my time here in town, I see Sean Colleen leading from the front almost every single day.
Thanks. Anybody else want to speak? Sue Tyler.
Hi, Susan Tyler, Weston Avenue. I too have seen the assessment that just came out, and it clearly leans basically 2 to 1 in favor of candidate Johnson. But I do have a question. This job description that we have right now, that was approved by the Personnel Board on May 5th. 3 days later, on May 8th, the job posting based on that job description went out. That job description clearly says the successful candidate will possess a minimum of 5-year professional experience in public works. I want to know if you're willing to take a vote to waive that requirement that is just put in to a brand-new job description that's not even 3 months old. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments?
Hi, Eric Cullum, Goulding Street. So I'm just voicing my opinion in favor of Sean. So I hadn't actually read this before. I watched a little bit of the other candidates' testimony on TV. I think it was aired a couple of weeks ago. I don't know good or bad or indifferent about his skills. All I know is that speaking to Sean and the intricacies of this town, I care for Sean's willingness to always help out and jump in. I feel like this town is a bit different than others. I know that we are not always unique, but in this aspect, things need to get done here a little bit quicker. I feel like Sean is the kind of person who would just jump in and do that versus delegate. I think it'd be good to have somebody at his level that could care to get it done and go the extra mile. And he knows people in this town and could, I think, make a bit of a difference and change the direction of the CMD department.
Okay. Joe, sure.
Hi, I'm Joe Carchidi, 33 Woodland Street. I don't know either candidate to speak of. Up to a few weeks ago, I didn't know they existed, so I don't have a bias relative to the person. However, last fall, I had an interaction with the Highway Department, or CM&D, and it was clear that the workers at that time were very displeased with the supervisor. It was innuendo and implied, but Ed seemed like a great guy to me, and yet there was obviously disenchantment with him among the workers. They just did what they had to do. They weren't really interested in doing a good job for Ed. That was my perception. So the other comment is, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, from 12 Woodland Street. Steve? Steve. Just from my management experience, I think there's a big difference, as Steve said, between leadership and management. I think that one candidate has it nailed as far as all the details and so forth. Leadership might be more important to getting the workers to want to do the job, be happy about doing the job, that kind of thing. So my 2 cents. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Zach Spillman, Curve Street. Rumor is, or at least it can be, a pretty toxic thing, especially in a small town where rumors get around. Our next CM&D director, whoever you choose, really needs to be able to hit the ground running in terms of the leadership that we've talked about, the culture that the person creates, the decisions they make, and the environment they set for the department there. We're all going to have to live with that. I heard a rumor recently. Mr. Brandon, I heard that you're leaving town. I heard that your house was for sale. I heard that you've already made plans
not a
to
rumor.
resign your seat on this committee. Well, if it's true, I wonder if you will recuse yourself from this vote and allow it to be made by the people who will actually live with the consequences.
No.
Okay. Well, I think that you should. I'd ask you to do so because we've seen the consequences of one kind of leadership over at CM&D, And we need something better than that, and we need somebody who is really going to create the kind of culture there and dedication to this town that department really needs to bring to the table.
Okay, that's it? Oh. Dave?
You all may have known me, David Colleen, 1 Butler Street, father of one of the candidates. I don't see much in here about the facilities manager. I only see different things about a highway super. I thought this whole thing started out as a double job. I think this document is very inaccurate. I think you've done the town an injustice with the way this has been handled. And there's been a lot of things said about you, Mr. Brandon, about your not refusing yourself on this.
I did not come intending to speak, but I think it's unfortunate that there are not people here who also know Eric Johnson. I actually have known both Eric and Sean since they were in diapers, and they both are very admirable gentlemen, and I think that if you look further into Eric's, he has served the community as well on various boards and things. He's just a little more low-key and perhaps not as well known. But I do hope that if your choice is not driven by the assessment and you decide to appoint Sean, that one of the conditions will be that he does step down as a selectman, if for nothing else but for the optics. But I don't see how you can have David be Sean's boss and Sean be David's boss, no matter how you work that out. So that would be my big concern. I would like to see that one of the conditions be, if you do have Sean, I think Sean's done a good job as selectman, and he certainly is probably the most passionate person about the town. But I think if you knew Eric better, you would see that he was also a very passionate, he grew up here, very passionate person about the town. So I'm not looking to influence, but I do want to put a little more balance on the fact that these are both good people.
Anybody else? Carol?
Carol Marple. Like Nancy, I didn't come expecting to speak, but as chief election official for the town of Sherborn, I have to say I am appalled to hear citizens ask a sitting selectman to recuse himself from a vote because he will not be a sitting selectman later on. I think that's inappropriate.
Anybody else? Okay, great, we'll bring it back up here.
Mike, could I first, before getting to the discussion of the candidates and the job description and the expanded responsibilities, I want to address the recusal question. With all due respect, I don't understand that position at all. As I noted a couple meetings ago, I've had the pleasure to serve with Eric on the planning board for 2 years. I've had the pleasure of serving with Sean for 2 years. I've had the pleasure of serving with Mark. I trust Mark's judgment. I don't see any conflict. I want Mark's input on this decision. I think with all due respect, Counselor, I don't see any basis for even suggesting that somebody recuse themselves. So to me, that's a non-starter.
Thank you, Chuck. I think I probably ought to add
Yeah, please.
which is, it's not a rumor. We have not sold our house. It's on the market. There's a big sign out front.
Say rumor, house for sale?
Coming soon.
And, you know, I've lived here a long time. It's an unpaid job. I do it because I care about the town, continue to care about the town. I think I bring a lot of experience to the decision. And I think the suggestion that I would make a decision, you know, based on the fact that I'm not going to be here, is a little insulting, actually. But, you know, our house is not sold. I'm still a resident, and I intend to do the job until I'm not a resident.
Okay. Now can we talk about,
Yeah, I'm happy to start if you'd like. As one of the, I think it was Stephen noted, the Personnel Board and the Board of Selectmen spent a fair amount of time on the job description, and we expanded it substantially to include public works operations, but also capital improvement program, land management, capital improvement program, buildings and facilities supervisor. As I noted a couple of meetings ago, I think it's just really impressive, and the town is lucky to have two passionate, qualified residents who are interested in doing the job. The flip side is we can only select one. So I guess I didn't think it quite through two meetings ago, but when we selected the fire chief, Paul and Mike both really pushed for an assessment center. And I was an observer for that as well. I found it to be invaluable. I found this assessment center to also be invaluable. Having worked with both Sean and Eric, like all of us, they have strengths and weaknesses. They have various skills that fit nicely and fit less nicely with the job description. So I went to the assessment center with a completely neutral view. And I think you can tell from the report that the assessment center made a very clear recommendation, and their conclusion as to who best meets the qualifications, who's best qualified to serve as the CMD director, is very clear for people who are not here. There were 3 members of the panel who posed 3 different scenarios, and then were asked to rate the responses on a 1 to 5 scale. So 3 members of the panel, 3 scenarios, 9 questions, potential of score of 45. One candidate knocked the ball out of the park, got a 45. The second candidate, who in my view is also could function very well as a CM&D director, got a score that was less than half that. So I appreciated the value of an assessment center in the fire chief selection, and I appreciated it here. And as difficult as it is to have to pick one or the other, that's our job. And Paul, as you properly noted earlier, when we were talking about the treasurer position, we need to select the person that's best qualified, that it's not a popularity contest. So with all due deference to people that, I think that Nancy's comment about Eric is very appropriate. He was a very quiet and effective member of the planning board. So I am going to follow the recommendations of the assessment center and recommend that we attempt to negotiate a contract with Eric Johnson if we're unable to. I think that Sean can do a great job as well, but that I'm prepared to follow the recommendations of the assessment center.
Paul, you want to go? Can talk?
I have concerns about the process. The thing that bothers me about the assessment center was that when we established the idea of an assessment center, I thought we were going to have on that assessment center someone who understood the very small nature of Sherborn's department. We had talked about one of the former CMD directors of Sherborn participating in that. For whatever reason, we have an assessment center that measures knowledge about municipal finance, budgeting, bidding, and contracting, to quote from the summary of the assessment center process. All of those items are what I would call administrative skills. And I think it's important to have administrative skills. But on the other hand, there's an intangible. I know that if I was driving a CM&D truck and I went off a ditch, I know if I called Eric, he would be very good at trying to manage the situation and find someone to come rescue me. But I also know that Sean Killeen would throw off his jacket and go pull me out of the truck. And the difference to me is huge. Sean is a doer, and I see Eric as a very competent and intelligent administrator. Given how small the department is, and given that this assessment center really didn't measure the most fundamental characteristic that I would want to see in a CM&D director, which is that characteristic of being a doer. I don't feel bound by this result. So I will stand with Sean Killeen.
Okay, Mark?
Well, we've reviewed resumes, and we've interviewed the candidates personally, and, even after that process, I think I made my preference clear. I think Eric is the candidate that I would like to hire. And then we put them both through the assessment center, and I'd like to give David kudos for putting this together. It looks like it was a very thorough job. And it really just confirms, I think, my read on the situation to begin with. So I will second Chuck's motion.
Okay. So, I will say that every instinct I have has been to support Sean on this, because I know he's a passionate guy and has also been very focused on CM&D operations for a really long time, and has a lot of thoughts and thoughtful thinking about town facilities and town infrastructure. It also looks like if I vote that way, it's going to be a logjam, and we're not going to have a CM&D director. What I would propose to do right now is see if we can get the requirement that Sean does not satisfy waived. And I'd like to make a motion to waive that requirement. The 5 years of public works experience requirement in the job description.
Well, I think we have to waive it for both.
I would waive it as a qualification, right?
Eric Johnson was a town engineer. He was not a DPW superintendent. And he did say he never served as a DPW superintendent. So I think we need to waive it for
Well, I think it
both.
says public works experience, but maybe you're right, Paul, I don't know.
So I will.
So I've made a motion, so.
I second it.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on that?
Well, wouldn't that open up the pool of candidates? Because apparently we had many other candidates that also didn't pass that particular hurdle.
You would have received a different pool if you posted it, that there was no education or experience requirements. But there's,
We're not talking about waiving education, I don't think, are we?
there's no, well, I mean, I just said the requirements. Those are the only two requirements in there. So it may have generated a different pool, but that's, that would be up to the person who's going to make some sort of protest about that.
Right. Anything to add, or should we take a vote?
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, there's also the requirement that the candidate have, the mandatory, it's not will possess, shall have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. I think Sean's degree is in mechanical engineering.
Or equivalent field, I think it says.
Yeah, or other appropriate discipline. To me, I don't have a problem with waiving the 5 years professional experience in public works management.
Okay. Take a vote on that?
Sure.
All in favor? Okay.
3 to
No.
3 to 1.
3 to 1. So I guess I would support Sean, largely for the reasons that Steve Leahy talked about, passion and the ability to lead, and without any diminishing Eric's skill or ability to do the job at all, because I think he's got a lot of talent and a lot of skill, and he has different strengths than Sean has. But I think at this time, for that job, Sean is somebody who would fit what we need now, which is to get a lot of stuff done, and drive a process that hasn't been driven in a long time. I think Sean's a driver. He's a guy who will push stuff to get done. I also will say very candidly, I'm a little concerned about temperament with Sean, and I would want, as part of a contract, to have some, maybe some type of training or public management education as a continuing education kind of thing for Sean, to give him that opportunity at least to improve his skills in that area. But as far as being a leader of a department, I think he could do that job quite well.
So where do we go? We got a 2-2.
No, we do.
I'd make one comment about the assessment center. The DPW director from a not terribly large town asked 3 scenarios that were very operational. I mean, they were hardcore nuts and bolts, but just, without being there, I just would pass on. That was my judgment. I thought this panel represented a good cross-section, like the panel for the fire chief selection.
I mean, I completely appreciate the results of this, Chuck, and I think for what it covered, it's, a valuable look into the differences between the two candidates, but I also don't think it's maybe as damning of Sean as some might think. He didn't score as high as Eric on these, but they also didn't say this guy can't do the job. In fact, I think they said he can do the job. He's gonna have a longer ramp up on some
Learning curve.
aspects of the job.
Right.
And I also agree very much with whoever said that Sean should resign his selectman position if he's appointed, and I think he's volunteered to do that. He
Yeah, I was
told
going
us
to say,
he
I
would do
was at a family funeral, but the tape I saw,
Yeah, he
he
said he would
said
do
that,
that.
so.
Just on the issue, just to respond to the business about the assessment center. One of the guys on the panel was a lawyer from the Inspector General's office. He really knows procurement. And I bet if we were interviewing town administrator candidates, that might be an appropriate thing to judge, because we have, our town administrator is our chief procurement officer. I really am opposed to departments going out and doing their own procurement. Just as a town council in many communities, I think the very last thing you want is all your department heads going out and buying all kinds of equipment. You lose the benefit of volume purchases, you lose the benefit of consistency, and you ought to have somebody in a town who knows procurement, and that's David, that's our town administrator. So to have a lawyer cross-examine Sean Colleen about legal requirements for procurement just doesn't seem to me to be fair to Sean compared to Eric, because Eric's operating out of a big town. He's got more daily procurement work. Just doesn't seem like that's a good playing field.
But how does it hurt the town to have two people who are expert in
Well,
procurement?
Typically, you would have every department head trained by the IG's office. But the reason that person was picked is because all facilities management, road work, construction, anything, is all has some sort of component of scopes of work, bidding, and deciding what bid to award to. So, I mean, Chuck witnessed the questioning. It wasn't a legal cross-examination of, tell me what Chapter 149 is. It wasn't that.
No, and there was a very specific nuts and bolts practical question about how do you bid paving projects of below 50,000 and above, and that's something that, our chief procurement officer is going to be involved with, but the head of CM&D, head of DPW should know. So I like you, I was there. I didn't see it as a legal cross-examination. I thought both candidates were given a fulsome chance to respond, and I thought it was a very fair process. So I would not characterize it as a cross-examination.
I just wanted to add that originally that seat was from an assistant town manager in a local town who was previously a buildings director of local public schools. He was unable to do it, so he backed out. This attorney happened to also have experience with Division of Capital Asset Management that's in charge of all the construction jobs and leases and that kind of thing with the state. So her questioning was it was meant to cover those areas. I mean, that's the base that was being covered. But I'll tell you, it's not a perfect science to do the assessment centers, you know that. And to be given a 2-week deadline, I didn't want to do it.
Well, this isn't about finding fault.
Right.
If that came across that way,
No, but I wanted to say there were a lot of people that I had to get recused from different, because they knew one or the other or had a certain bias. So it was a very difficult assessment center to come up with something that to bring back to the board of.
my point's a little different. I appreciate all the work you did on this. I appreciate the difficulty of putting this together. There were 3 seats on this assessment panel. By putting procurement via someone from the Inspector General as one of the 3 most important things, I think in the end doesn't fairly measure what Sean could do for this department. I'm particularly concerned because I know the people at CM&D and I have a sense of chemistry, if you will. And I know, or I feel that Sean would be able to fit right in. And my sense is that Eric might end up having the same kind of tensions that Ed had. Maybe not. But I think with Sean, it's a much safer bet. The assessment center, because it didn't include someone familiar with Sherborn, familiar with how small our department is, how people have to work with each other in close quarters. That there were assets of Sean's that weren't fully brought out in the assessment center. So on the issue of procurement, yeah, even before the assessment center, I would have said Eric would have that knowledge, and Sean probably wouldn't have that same degree of knowledge. I wouldn't need an assessment center to tell me that, but who is going to be able to galvanize maybe galvanize is the wrong word, to take a department that seems like it's in a funk and bring it to a vibrant, enthusiastic, let's go group. It just seems that's not measured by this assessment center.
But you know, you've been involved in enough assessment centers to know that that's an intangible that you could not assess with any panel. I mean, that's what you're talking about.
Well, if you had Mike Paxtis, or you had, who's that? Gary.
There were reasons one wasn't asked, and then there was reasons why the other one couldn't.
So
That's all you can say.
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
Ran out of people.
So what are we gonna do? What is the sense of what we're gonna do? We're in a log jam. We could move on to
Maybe we need a seven-member board.
We can move on to the executive session.
Can I ask Darren a question?
Ask Darren a question. You have to push your little microphone thing down, David, since it's discussing with council.
You could seek negotiations with both and judge once you get draft contracts.
Well, that leads to an interesting question, which is, is there a difference in price between the two?
All the final candidates had salary expectations that were in a 90 to 120 range from what I can remember.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference between 90 and 120. So if one candidate's at 120 and one candidate's at 90.
Yeah, but I'm not going to discuss that here. That's why I'm saying you could
Okay.
negotiate with two people.
Microphones, please.
Rick, did you turn the mics back on?
They're back on.
Okay, good.
But you need to speak into them.
I don't think you want to get into that.
There's the whole front row is empty. You want to move up and hear better.
I was just suggesting that if there was a big price difference between one versus the other, sorry to objectify it, but if you're like buying a car and one car is $5,000 and one car is $50,000, that might make a difference. So I was just asking if they were had the same expectations or what?
To my knowledge, the expectations were similar, and they were both based on what we have as available for funds. We could give the job to the lowest bidder if you want. That's what we.
That always works well.
And have a bidding war between them. But I can't, they haven't put in, down on paper what they would be demanding for a salary, so. There were salary expectations, and they were all relatively equal, based on the job.
Well, what about, we're looking for a way out of an impasse, so what about authorizing the town administrator to have discussions with both to find out the answer to a couple of questions? Who's available and who's not, and when? Because I think it would make a difference if one guy was available quickly as opposed to somebody who might need a couple of months.
So
What is the minimum salary that each would need to have? And are there other benefits that each needs or expects?
So earliest start date, minimum salary required, and required benefits package.
Yeah, I mean, things like, are they satisfied with the office that we have? Have they actually seen the CM&D director's physical space?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that type of question.
I think we need to find a way to break this amongst ourselves here. I mean, sending David off on some wild goose chase doesn't, I mean, he's got enough stuff going on.
I don't know. I think that information could be helpful. I
Could have him call me
don't,
right
I don't
now.
know at this point what the salary expectations are of either of them, and I know they probably both said the highest number or close to that they
Right.
thought they could come up with based on what they know the budget is.
Right, the original packet that went out when you started with the interviews, I had asked them that, and it was in those documents on what their current salary or their salary expectation was. So that's why I said 90 to 120. One didn't report their expectation, they reported what the minimum salary they would accept.
You can't
That's
ask
not
people
they-
what their current salary is.
I didn't
Not
ask,
anymore, you
I just
can't.
said that we asked them what their
As of
salary
whenever.
expectation was.
Okay.
But we didn't require them to give me that number. So some said, well, I'll tell you what my salary is right now. So you can interpret that any way you want. If their current salary is 90, is that the minimum they're going to accept? Probably not, but.
I think it's a pretty straightforward question. I mean, I think you just asked the question.
But you can't get the true answer to that until you get to this level.
I know.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I think Paul's suggesting now's the time to ask a question like that.
Yeah.
There could be a huge gap between them, or there might not be. I don't know if the physical space question is as relevant, but I think, from a budget constrained town,
No, these three
a big salary difference
quantifiable,
could be a big incentive one way or the other.
these three items are quantifiable that could be done over a phone call and.
Yeah.
Well, and the start date is relevant too. I mean, if we're hiring in our offices, it'd be relevant. I'm also concerned that we're just kicking the can down the road. It's been, this has been open for a while. I'm sorry we're at a 2-2 impasse, but
We only had a fifth selectman.
I think we need 7 selectmen. I think that'll be a warrant article next year. But anybody else have any creative ideas on how to break the impasse? Anybody respond to threats if I threaten you, or?
Take a vote.
It's not a popularity contest.
Invoke the rule of necessity.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna work.
No, it's not.
Put it back to the two jobs descriptions that had originally been. We had a facilities manager, we used to have one, now you just combined it with CMD. One candidate says, right now they're foreseeing, this is a 50-hour-a-week job. Put it back to a facilities manager, you get the best candidate over here, and then the CMD director, and you get the best candidate over there. There's a solution.
That's a great idea to solve this solution, but it doesn't solve the monetary funding solution. You would have to seek additional funds from reserve.
For what?
If you're going to be funding two positions like she's talking about.
But we don't need a full-time facilities director. We need a very limited number of hours. What do we need, like a 15-hour-a-week one, or 10 hours, or what was that?
I'd have to calculate how many hours you budgeted at.
Oh, it wasn't close to full-time.
No. Well, it was,
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was even that much, was it? You mean before? Yeah.
I think town council has some words on the tips of his tongue, is that correct? No.
No.
No, he was dozing. You just woke him up, Chuck, come on.
No, I'm following intently.
yeah, it was around 15 to 20 hours is what was set aside.
Well, we're meeting again in 2 weeks, right? We're meeting on the 30th?
That one we're meeting?
There
I mean,
wasn't
I
a
think we
meeting
should.
set.
Well, no, it's not the 30th. What's 2 weeks from now?
27th.
That one we're meeting?
Yeah, we should set the next meeting. 27th?
Yeah.
Is that good for everybody?
I've already held it for a selectmen's meeting, so it must be this one.
I'm sorry, what date are we talking
How
about?
about the 27th, Chuck, Thursday? You guys do that?
That works for me.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Do you want to work on this in the next 2 weeks, David? Come up with a creative solution, or else get answers to that pricing question, or both?
The three questions: early start date, minimum salary required, and required benefits.
Yeah.
Right?
And whether they like the office or not. That was Paul's idea.
I'm sorry, and you had
It wasn't just the
start
office.
date?
You know, what vehicle is going to be assigned to them?
Yeah.
What kind of phone is it going to
No,
be
we're
on?
not we're not going there. This is all you need.
That's too detailed. You don't
Yeah,
really need all that
this is
stuff.
all you need.
Yeah, you don't need
This will be enough.
Okay, all
Okay.
right.
We don't need a questionnaire to be on
Alright.
this.
Great. All right, can we move on to the next item?
Yep.
The next item is selectmen reports and then executive session. Anybody have any selectmen reports? Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Can we talk about the complete streets policy again?
Can we get Higley back here to do this?
I think we did a complete job with the complete streets.
Okay, no more selectmen reports. Let's do the executive session then. Where's my,
I've got the cheat sheet for you.
Are you gonna use my office for that?
Is,
Executive session, or you can do it here?
Here you go.
Okay.
thanks, Chuck. Couldn't find it. All right. I move the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session under Chapter 30A, Section 21-3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, CM&D Union, AFS-CME Council 93, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town, and the chair so declares, and Chapter 38, Section 21-3, to discuss strategy with respect to pending litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town, and the chair so declares with respect to the following matters: Town of Sherborn et al. V. Gray Road LLC et al., the Gray Road LLC v. Sherborn ZBA, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Sherborn ZBA, Stevens, the Field at Sherborn LLC versus Board of Health, the Fields at Sherborn LLC versus Conservation Commission, and Murchison versus ZBA. The board will not return to open session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
We need to get Sean in.
Second.
Second by Mr. Yan. Having a second, we have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis?
Votes aye.
Mr. Yan?
Aye.
We'll wait on Mr. Clean if he's coming back in. Mr. Brandon?
Yes.
And Mr. Jimo is yes. And I don't see Mr. Clean yet. By a vote of 4-0, we are now in executive session. The open session is now closed. We will not be returning to open session.